Mount up! We're coming!
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Coller here, and if it looks like I got a little sun on the face and maybe a little sunscreen residue, well I do, because today I spent a couple of hours out in the sun at TCO Performance Center watching the Minnesota Vikings' first open OTA practice to the media, and it was a little more eventful after practice with the press conference heard around the world already by JJ McCarthy, and we talked to Kyler Murray as well. But I want tonight, so we broke that down on the podcast earlier from TCO Performance Center with myself and Dane Mizutani. So I want tonight to be open for you guys, questions, comments. I'm going to jump right in. So there's no big opening statement. It is just right from the jump, questions, comments, thoughts about OTAs. And I do want to remind you that as of this moment, there are like 80 something other players on the team other than JJ McCarthy and Kyler Murray. So if you have questions, thoughts, ask me about OTAs. There's only so much that is going on out there. There's only so much that can be watched at one time. A lot of the younger players are on a different field, call it the development field. And then you have the first and second teams working where I was standing, obviously, to watch the quarterbacks. You can't get a great look at offensive linemen or defensive linemen in this type of environment, but I'll do my best if you're curious about how someone looked. Well, we did get a look at some very basic alignments and things like that, and the wide receivers and the QBs. But if you got any other questions that are out there, just in general about the GM search still ongoing, moves that need to be made, players and their trajectories for this year and so forth, jump in the comments and feel free to ask. But I think I have a good idea what the main subject of tonight's conversation is going to be about. And I've got, a lot more to say about it after learning of the response, because when Dane and I earlier did our podcast, we had just come from the press conference. So we did our podcast. I drove home. I ate Taco Bell, and then I started to look at what people are saying. And I think that unsurprisingly, there's more reaction than is necessary to JJ McCarthy's press conference. We broke it down, of course, because that's the thing that we were out there for, is to see him practice and then talk to them after. But I also think that it might be going a little bit too far. So we'll dive into that as we go along. We'll start right out here in the chat with Joker. Says, do you think JJ McCarthy understands that he may never take another snap for the Vikings apart from the preseason? Do you think he believes that's fair? So I don't know what JJ McCarthy truly thinks inside of his soul about whether he's going to take another snap or be the franchise quarterback, or if he believes that it's fair or not. I mean, we do know that last year when he was asked if he thought he had earned the right to be the team's quarterback in 2026, he did say that he thought he did enough to earn that, which certainly raised a little bit of an eyebrow with me, because I thought, well, that's interesting. I mean, just based on the way that this went, I'm not sure where that would be. Like, where was it that you thought that you did enough to earn the right to be the quarterback? And then that was a similar type of vibe today from JJ McCarthy, that when the idea of the competition came up and when Kyler Murray came up, it was much more defensive and terse than we have ever seen JJ McCarthy in front of the media. So it was notable. And when I say it's notable, what often the comment section says is, why do you hate JJ McCarthy? Which is just like, I said it was notable, and it is notable. It is different from his approach to answering a lot of difficult questions last year, but those were all questions when he was the clear-cut franchise quarterback going into camp or when he was still QB1 throughout the season. Here's what I think of the bigger picture here with a more uncomfortable press conference than usual and more of a defensive tone a little bit from JJ McCarthy. And then even the way that he approached the questions about Kyler, there was a very easy answer there. There was just, yeah, we're teammates. We're going to push each other. It's great. We're getting to know each other, and may the best man win. And instead he said, I sit over here, you sit over there. And I was like, okay, well, I guess they will not be doing the Step Brothers meme shirt with JJ McCarthy and Kyler Murray anytime soon. But here's what I want to point out is we talked about going into last season. McCarthy was asked many times, dude, you've never lost before ever in your entire life. So what's it going to be like when you run into the hammer that is the NFL that just pounds people into the ground because it is physically taxing, emotionally taxing, and you lose a lot. Even if you're Peyton Manning, you'd lose 4 or 5 games a year. Even the best quarterbacks in history. Patrick Mahomes missed the playoffs last year. Like, it doesn't matter. Everyone, Josh Allen has had massive playoff disappointments, right? Doesn't matter how good you are. The NFL will knock you off of your pedestal. Even Tom Brady, right? So that was a common question for JJ McCarthy. And I think that last year, the roller coaster of the NFL really whipped him around good. I mean, from the injuries to the criticism to some high points where he was very good to some low points where he was really, taking it on the chin from the national media. His franchise is getting hammered for letting go Sam Darnold and all those things, right? About JJ McCarthy. Think about this. This has never happened before, ever to him in his entire life. He has never stood at a podium-ish and been asked, hey, what about this other quarterback that they brought in who has a track record of being very good in the NFL? And everyone's saying that they brought him in to be the starter because you didn't play well enough. This is a totally foreign thing to JJ McCarthy. And I cannot imagine it's very easy to deal with, much less are you thrilled to go answer a bunch of questions about it. So as people go along in the NFL, quarterbacks, and they build up a lot more scar tissue. And I'll give you a good example of this would be like Zach Wilson. Now, I know Zach Wilson didn't work out, but Zach, New York media thrown into the wolves at first. And there were a lot of press conferences and moments when he was getting criticized that were like, dude, does this guy get it at all? But yet he's been able to carve out now a backup quarterback career for himself. And I wouldn't be shocked if someday Zach Wilson shows up as some team's quarterback at 27 years old or whatever, 29 years old, and he's a different guy than he was before. This is not that uncommon, but it's playing out right in front of us, and we're seeing it in real time of the harsh reality kind of hitting him for the very, very first time of someone who's never really failed in his career at all, and he's never been replaced, or there's never been any question about who the guy was. And I'm also sure that what McCarthy feels a little bit is like, wow, 10 games and some ups and downs, and now I'm just having to fight for my life here when just a year ago you were talking about me as the franchise quarterback. Again, it is welcome to the NFL. It's that harsh. It is that difficult. And this is why it does take some quarterbacks. Look at all the stuff Baker Mayfield, the times that he stepped on his own foot in press conferences in Cleveland and things like that. And now that's not what you hear from Baker Mayfield because he's been through it a little bit. And Mayfield had nothing but success in Oklahoma. And you know what? There's another guy who's here now who is in phase 2 or 3 of that, which is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, massive success in high school, Heisman Trophy in college, offensive rookie of the year, and then a winner pretty quickly. Not a champion winner, but was winning a lot of games, getting a lot of accolades, being talked about a lot, and then has an injury and then has a setback. And then he's in a totally different scenario with the Arizona Cardinals situation. And then they're saying, we're going to move on from you. And now he's here in Minnesota. But when he talks to us, it's from a grown-up perspective of he understands how this all works. But at times in his career, people talked about him as, well, he's immature or his personality is X, Y, and Z. And people still hold on to that all the time with Kyler Murray, even though everyone I've talked to over the last 4 months or whatever, how long has it been? 3 months since they acquired Kyler Murray, all said that this doesn't really apply to the last couple of seasons under Jonathan Gannon. Because why? I can't imagine what would have happened to Kyler. Oh yeah, maturing, going on in your career, going through adversity, learning from it, understanding how to be more coachable, all those types of things. Understanding that the world doesn't rotate around you, which a lot of young people think that it does. It's like there's a lot of things that can be chalked up to, this is the first time this person has ever dealt with it. And it's not like he said, yeah, I'm going to stuff Kyler in a locker. He just basically said, if we're recapping and not quoting exactly, like, yeah, we're competing and it's not going to be best friends. Well, okay. There's no rule in the book that says that you have to be. The only thing that I would say about it is, as you go along in your career, you learn that there is a way to approach something publicly that doesn't have to be your authentic self. Because it may have been, very well have been today, his authentic feelings about the situation. And it kind of came across that way. And I think that JJ doesn't have that much of a filter. I don't think that he looks like it's like, that's my choreographed answer or something. I think it was just, that's how it is. And there were numerous times throughout last year that he said things in press conferences where you're like, that might be a little too honest. You know who else did this? Was an inexperienced general manager, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, at times, where you're like, well, you know, that might be a little bit too much information that you're sharing with the public. And maybe that was a little bit of this today, that, you know, his personality in front of people is usually pretty open, right? And so if you're pretty open after you win against the Detroit Lions, but you're, you know, pretty open also after losses or in situations where the entire media has been saying you're not the quarterback anymore and you want to prove them wrong, well, you know, it's just going to be a little bit of a different vibe. So to your question, I don't know what he knows or what he thinks exactly, but I think we got a pretty good sense of it. And even when he was asked if it's a true competition and there was a little bit of a like, yeah, that's what I've been told. I thought, yeah, I mean, it's not like the writing is hard to read on the wall about this situation, but I think what would be best for JJ McCarthy is, and I've always thought this too, because it's different, but media is a competitive world as well. And I think as you get older and you see how things work, and this is like Uncle Matt's here to help you out, but you understand that working together is always going to be better than working against each other or separately, even if it's not the most comfortable situation. Steve Young talked about this. I brought this up on the show. I hope that JJ McCarthy has a chance to watch the documentary about the San Francisco 49ers. I would suggest it to him if he asked. He doesn't ask me for advice, but if he does, then I would tell him that. Like, watch how Steve Young approached that. Because at first, Steve Young was very unhappy and eventually just realized, if I am the most helpful person in whatever role that the team asks of me, I'm going to get farther ahead. Even if I want to be a competitor, even if I want to play, even if I think that I would win a lot of games, being the best you can be for your team and for Kyler and for Carson Wentz and for Max Brosmer is going to get you farther than trying to work on different planes. So, you know, I think that what you saw there was one guy who's been through it and knows how to answer those questions, and then one guy who is going through it for the very first time. So we don't need to make this into this. And I saw in the comments section for our earlier podcast is like, what are people bored? Because I mean, the Lynx are playing and they're really good. So if you want sports to watch, that might be a thing to do rather than yelling at everyone in a comment section. But I'm sure there'll be some of that anyway. All right, let me carry on. I Shot You 99 says, I feel like McCarthy's press conference felt performative, didn't feel genuine, almost as if he was afraid of being himself and kept things short and stern because of things he said last year. Yeah, I can't really say for sure. I mean, I kind of took it the opposite way. I kind of took it as this guy wears his emotions on his sleeve. And when they win and when things are going well and he gives himself a nickname, which again, for the 100th time, I'm not the person who's ever going to criticize a guy for being a little over enthusiastic when he won a football game. It's really hard to win a football game in the NFL, to win in Ford Field. And, he kind of does have a little bit of this alter ego, goes out there and, at certain times you see him like turn it up to another level. So when he said it at that press conference, when he called himself 9, I was like, oh, okay. And then I go home and I'm like, what in the world? The whole world is throwing this in his face and everything else. So that was another example, though, of I felt like that was just him being in the moment, answering the question about how he felt and what he was thinking. And that was a little bit of today, too. Now, I mean, yeah, there's probably a different way to answer certain questions in like a blow off way, which I think, how about this? Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has become the best that you'll ever see at the sort of short and sweet kind of answer where you can never really read Sam Darnold all that well. And when Sam was here, some of my colleagues were begging for better quotes, but my thought was, isn't that what you want? Like, isn't that what you want for Sam Darnold to just fly even and never really let on if he is super upset or disappointed or frustrated or like way over the top enthusiastic and thrilled? And that's another thing that comes along with a grown-up quarterback who had been through it. Carson Wentz is a great example. Carson Wentz was criticized in Philadelphia, former teammates, coaches leaking out stuff. Well, Carson Wentz is all about him, or doesn't have a great attitude, or whatever it was. I forget what the story, how the framing was. My experience with Carson Wentz so far is like, yeah, this guy is a pro's pro. He's here to do whatever he can for the quarterbacks in the room and handled last year's stuff really well. And even when, he got hurt and a lot of us, including me, were criticizing Kevin O'Connell, he came out and said, don't do that. I wanted to play and whatever else. I don't know if Carson Wentz at 23 years old or 24 years old would have handled that the same way, what happened last year. And I don't think he would have been accepting of being a really helpful backup quarterback who you can trust and can go in at any time and know the offense inside and out. I mean, this goes for just about anything. I'm sure that if you're an adult my age and you went back to, I went to community college first. If I went back to community college, I'll tell you, I would just get straight A's and crush it and be like, what's wrong with all you kids? You don't know anything. Because I'm an adult and I've been through a lot of stuff and I know how to do the work and everything else. So I think we always, and I know, look, it's year 3 and I'm not trying to like condescend by saying this. It's just that I bet you could find many examples of what happens when somebody doesn't have the success they expect right away and they are young and inexperienced and have never gone through it before. It's going to be a tough ride for them. And they are not always going to be, cheery about that. But I think that here's where the one miscue is a little bit when it comes to this. You play for a franchise that's paying you on a team that's trying to win a championship. And what you always hear from backup quarterbacks is, I will do whatever it takes to help us win a championship. And that might be something to keep in mind for the future, is that if you're Nick Mullins, didn't you think Nick Mullins didn't want to play? Dude, Nick Mullins, after he was done playing in 2023, he said that he thinks that he can be a starting quarterback in the league. And the guy got super emotional about it. I mean, you don't think that guy wants to be there so bad starting every week? He is incredibly competitive. We think of these backups sometimes as, well, yeah, they're just happy with their role. That's not true. They want to be out there, but they also understand that they have a role. They have a job. It is a job. And that might be JJ McCarthy's job. And, if he learns it and he takes things really away from watching from the sideline or not getting the first team reps of seeing how Kyler goes about stuff, because Kyler had today in his OTA practice, just a very professional practice. It was like watching Kirk. It was like watching Sam Bradford. It was just like, yep, that's how it's supposed to look. The timing was pretty good. The accuracy was on point. Most completions, ball didn't hit the ground very much. It was like, yeah, that's what it looks like when you have a lot of experience. And, JJ McCarthy is still working his way there. So I think that if he learns from this, like not this press conference, whatever, like we'll forget about this by 2 days from now. But if he learns from this experience, it can really benefit him in the long term. But it's a hard thing to like have that sink in. And I also think that, he wants to, maybe take on a little bit of all right, like if you guys are going to play this way, then I'm going to ramp it up a little bit more. I would have liked to have heard that from him though. I would have liked to have heard, because we, it was kind of teed up of, yeah, of course, it's motivation, it's going to push me and I'm going to be the best version of myself. We just didn't really hear that either from him. But again, it's an OTA press conference. It is not the NFC Championship. Mr. Mayor, really excited to see how Kyler does this year. I hope people can appreciate in real time instead of hindsight, like with Darnold. So, Mr. Mayor, this is something I was thinking about a lot today as I was watching the reaction to Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy's press conferences. And I thought, there's a remarkable amount of people who are Vikings fans who show up here to listen to this Vikings show who jump in the comments and say, Kyler is not that good. And, his team let him go in Arizona and stuff, which of course, like Arizona only makes great decisions. Right. But it's amazing how people feel like if they're McCarthy fans, they have to tear down Kyler Murray. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because if you are a Viking fan, which is not something for like the faint of heart, you usually don't pick out Viking fan out of a hat. Like if you're doing that, you'd be Kansas City or something, right? Or Dallas Cowboys in a certain era, or 49ers in a certain era. Like you're not the front running type. So I would think that if you were a Viking fan, you would want anyone, literally anyone, who could be a good quarterback to be your quarterback. You would want best man wins, best quarterback. And I don't understand why you would tear down your own quarterback. I mean, I get it from our perspective where we do the objective analysis and everything, and we look at the numbers and performances, and sometimes they're not good and we'll criticize and we'll try to find the answers and stuff like that. But from a Viking fan perspective, it seems odd to me that people would, with Kyler coming in, be like against him being the starting quarterback. He is clearly the best player at the position that the Vikings have. He's one of the 15 best in the NFL, and don't take my word for it. That's what the folks in the National Football League have voted for him repeatedly in the Athletics quarterback tiers article. So in saying he's a top 15 quarterback, it's not coming from me. It's coming from the actual evaluators and the data people as well. So you would think that getting a top 15 quarterback for essentially free in a world where we complained about Kirk Cousins' contract for so long would be pretty exciting. And I don't think that by being happy about Kyler Murray or whatever, you have to then not like JJ McCarthy. I mean, I think that you can believe that McCarthy has it in there and also think this is the best option for the team at this moment, unless things vastly change. I mean, this is my very first impression of Kyler Murray, but it looked exactly how I would have expected it to look for somebody who has this good of a track record. So that's a little bit bizarre to me, the way that fans of a team could be going and tearing down their own quarterback because it's not the one that they wanted. Well, I mean, I guess I get it, because there is disappointment, I think, from fans too. You make an emotional connection with the history of the franchise and how you've not had the franchise quarterback since Fran Tarkenton, true franchise quarterback consistently for a long period of time. Dante was that. Tommy Kramer was that. Teddy had a minute. Kirk, but it was always fleeting, right? So you're looking for who's the 10-year quarterback, we were talking about Justin Herbert the other night, but one thing you can say for the Chargers is they're going to get a lot of shots at it with Justin Herbert over a career, that kind of quarterback. Where can you find, this doesn't even have to be Mahomes or Allen, but somebody that's going to give you a shot. Your Eli Manning, a shot every single year at it, right? The Vikings have been missing that. And there were so many emotional eggs put in the McCarthy basket, especially after the team moved on from Sam Darnold. And then it was like, wait a minute, they're really believing this is happening. I think that's been hard for a lot of fans. So circling back to your comment, I totally agree, because I spent the 2024 season doing live shows being like, why are you guys not buying into Sam Darnold? This is amazing. This is a great story. He's playing great quarterback. It doesn't seem random. And yet you're not buying in because of someone who's not even playing just because he was a draft pick. Who cares how you got him? Which is how I feel about Kyler Murray. Who cares how he got here? What matters is the throw he made down the sideline to Jordan Addison today, which the Vikings tweeted, and you can check that out if you want. Mr. Mayor, how does the rest of the team seem to interact with Kyler? True or not? We've always heard so much about his personality and lack of leadership in Arizona, but I feel like all the guys want and need is competence. So, yeah, I mean, one OTA practice doesn't give me a really good sense for it. It gave me a sense for, well, he was on time with his throws. He was very accurate. He was in control. And then there were a couple of plays like where Brian Flores sent the house and was like, oh, yep, he didn't expect that, because I don't think they did that in Arizona, sending the house on a blitz in OTAs. But Brian Flores is a madman, and that's what he's going to do. But so I don't know, but I tend to agree with what you said, which is this team, where they're at, I don't think they need motivation. I don't think they need a friendship. I don't think they need somebody to sing Kumbaya and play acoustic guitar around a campfire. I think what they need is someone to make the throws to Justin Jefferson. Jefferson is the franchise player. He's the one everyone looks to. And on the defensive side, they're missing Grenard and Harrison Smith, but they have veteran players. They have a great, great coach. They have their coach, Kevin O'Connell, is a culture guy, motivator, everything else. You really don't need Kyler Murray to be a rah-rah type of player. Leading a team doesn't have to be that anyway. It can just be doing your job and being prepared and being ready and knowing the offense and getting in there and running the plays like today on a regular old practice. But you know what? The receivers got evaluated. Dylan Bell looked really good to me. I'm just saying. The receivers got evaluated. The tight ends got evaluated. Like, you went out there and ran a practice where the coaches could get a lot out of it for where you stand on things. And that's what good leadership can be as well. I also do want to point out that over the last 3 years, I tried researching this because I'm looking every angle of Kyler Murray over the last couple months. I tried to find anything over the last 3 years that would suggest that he didn't get along with the coaches, that players weren't happy with his leadership. I couldn't really find anything. I mean, early on in his career, there were probably some things of, like we're talking about with J.J. McCarthy, of adjusting to how difficult the league is. Cliff Kingsbury, I think that his coaching track record is not really that spectacular, and maybe leadership was not like Kevin O'Connell, and maybe they didn't have the same level of leadership on that team. But I think some of it does just come from, he's not going to be the loudest guy out there. He wasn't, when I did a story about his high school career and I talked to those guys, they said, yeah, he was very soft-spoken. And every once in a while, he might get upset on the sideline if things aren't going the right way. But aside from that, he's going to kind of go about his business. I think that that's perfectly fine for this team. But in terms of like vibe or whatever, I mean, I don't know. They're all just like, Justin Jefferson ran like 3 routes today. They're all just feeling their way into it, especially the people who have been in this offense before. Scamping around, how does the early vibes feel for you? Does it feel like Darnold 2.0, or does the JJ dynamic make it a different situation? It does not have the same feel at this point of Sam Darnold because, well, there's a lot that's really different. I mean, Sam Darnold, nobody knew, not the coaches. I mean, look, in hindsight, of course, you could say, oh, well, I was the one that loved Darnold and they loved him enough to bring him in. But it was a shock to them how good Sam Darnold turned out to be. And I think as training camp went on, they were like, oh, I mean, even I do remember OTAs and minicamp of Sam Darnold being like, wow, these are some throws. But I thought that he would probably throw it to the other team just as much. But there was a little bit of that wow factor when he first got to the Vikings. So I don't know that there's a arm wow factor to Kyler Murray, but there's definitely a accuracy and arc and touch on the football wow that shows up right away. It's not quite Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford had the best arm talent that I have ever seen. It's the combination of velocity into tight windows and the touch on the football, which tells you that, even with the best arm talent that I've covered, not that I've ever seen in my life in football, that I've covered, Aaron Rodgers is probably the best, right? But the combination of those things is just excellent. And look, there's no pressure, there's no pass rush. You're dropping back and you're trying to time it out well and put it into a spot, and that's what we saw him do. But the accuracy just jumps out at you. Even when you watch him warm up and just throw with his receivers, it's like right on the money time and time again. So clearly there's that. It's noticeable. And I imagine that his teammates are like, okay, especially when you see the throw that he made today to Jordan Addison, you go, yep, that's a drop in the bucket that is very, very impressive. So it is different though, because the expectations, the other thing too is at that point, when Darnold got here, the Vikings didn't know what they were. I mean, they were looking around going, you know what? We can prove some people wrong. Their over-under was 6.5. Hey, let's be the team that sort of shocks the world. That is not the vibe now. I mean, the vibe now is you got to win. And I don't mean this from what practice looked like today. I just mean in general. And O'Connell said that at the combine. The timeline is different. And it's different for a lot of players. It's different for, Brian O'Neill, and it's different for Blake Cashman, and it's different for a lot of people than it would have been 2 years ago. Joker says, seems like we have real depth this year. If guys like Jacoby Thomas, Dylan Bell can give us something, what positions have the best depth? Yeah, you're totally, totally right that the draft class is a lot of depth at different positions, which I think is super valuable overall. I mean, you're looking at cornerback, and I liked what I saw from Chuck Demings today, which was not a ton, obviously, but just the way he moves and his explosiveness. I kept kind of looking over and seeing him with his back pedal and just tracking wide receivers, and you go like, yeah, that's interesting. And Bell in both rookie minicamp and OTAs, I don't mean to make him sound like he's the next Percy Harvin, but there's something there. There's some juice there. And whether he can put that together and learn the offense and be a part of it, I don't know. But he's stood out both times because you see that jolt and that kind of lightning. Jacoby Thomas was playing as a backup safety today, which I would imagine any rookie is going to. And you have Jay Ward mixing in kind of all over the place. Theo Jackson playing more of a traditional safety position. So which positions have the best depth? I think offensive tackle. And we saw a little bit of Christian Darrisaw working in and out with the offensive line, and Ryan Vandemark popping in there. Offensive tackle suddenly has good depth. We'll see about running back and just how that works. Saw a lot of Aaron Jones today, and Aaron looked, pretty spry. Wide receiver, they're going to have to prove it. I mean, you have great depth as in Juwan Jennings, but past that, that's where it's very unclear. Ty Felton did have a really nice catch from J.J. McCarthy today, where it was like a little out on the fingertips, and he sort of Superman stretched out and grabbed it. So that was good. He needs to develop throughout this time and prove that he's that guy. Where they had, I could think of the least outside linebacker is probably the least. Linebacker with Jake Golday, who is moving, he moves around really well for a guy of his size. He stands way out next to Ivan Pace and Eric Wilson. You're just like, yeah, he's towering over those guys as an inside linebacker, but he moves really nicely. So probably linebacker might have the best depth, because even if Ivan Pace has to play, you can win with Ivan Pace. Scamping around, any more updates on Harrison Smith's return? Wait and see, like the GM announcement. Yeah, it's definitely wait and see. Definitely wait and see. The way that I am viewing it for Harrison Smith is that we'll all find out together because Harry's not the type to be I don't know, putting it out on social media, although, he did the Prince thing, which was very funny, but like that, even that was totally unexpected and it's classic Harrison Smith. So I imagine if he's coming back, maybe we'll get the Prince. If you don't know that story, Harrison was asked by a local reporter and a friend of mine, Chris Thomason, if he was going to return to the Vikings, I think 2 years ago, and he sent him a picture of Prince. And, then Chris tweeted that out. And so we got Harrison to sign a picture of it on a t-shirt for Chris when he left for Denver to cover the Broncos. But so maybe it'll be that. Maybe it'll be that picture, which I think he tweeted out when he was coming back last year. We'll see. But I have no idea. And the same thing with the GM announcement. Like, I don't know when they're going to make that decision. I would imagine that people are coming in this week, and then by the middle of next week, or it could be the end of this week, then they'll have a decision. Joker says, what do we not need in free agency? Oh, that's what you mean by the depth. Well, I think, wide receiver, you're in good shape at the moment, and at offensive tackle and linebacker. Safety, I think, but it depends on what they just think of these guys, because it looks to me like Jay Ward is going to be your new player that is moving all over the place. And Mr. Mayer asked, do the safeties look like they can cope without Harrison Smith? Hope Hitman retires now while he's still at the top of his game instead of risking a drop-off. I do think that, but it's a lot dependent on some development. I mean, Theo Jackson last year was not a disaster. I think Theo had to learn how to be a downhill tackler a little better, but I don't think he was a disaster in coverage. He had, mostly okay games and then some ones where it was pretty tough, but I don't think we've seen the best of Theo Jackson yet. Where I'm really curious is Josh Metellus playing a normal safety position, which there is no normal with Brian Flores, but playing in that Harrison Smith type of spot is an adjustment for him. He did get some of that last year, and so it's not his first time ever, but does Jacoby Thomas offer them a little bit of depth? Does Jay Ward become this sort of, chess piece, as they say, on the defense? That's what it looks like. Jay Ward today, and this is every disclaimer, but he's outside at corner. He's inside at corner. He's back at safety with the second team. So I think that there's a really interesting role being carved out there, which may end up following the same journey basically as Josh Metellus. Joker, if JJ's mentality is I deserve to be the starter, it's not fair, then trade him now because it's not going to go anywhere if he doesn't get it, and bring in Cooper Rush. Yeah, well, Cooper Rush is a proven backup quarterback, but I understand what you're getting at, which is, yes, if JJ McCarthy believes that he doesn't need improvement and should be the starter and the team hates him and whatever. If he's super delusional about what happened last year and how he's performed and the injuries that, even just based on the injuries, you'd want another quarterback that could start a season just because you don't know when someone's had that many injuries. But if he is completely delusional about what's happened here and he is behind the scenes not being a good teammate and frustrating the team and everything else, then yeah, there is a point where you have to call it. Now, I would not call it after a 3-minute press conference at OTAs where he wasn't the usual JJ McCarthy that we've seen because the circumstances have changed. But I think behind the scenes, they will get a sense for what's exactly happening here. And I did, notice that Kyler spent extra time with Josh McCown after practice. I think that relationship's going to be really good, but JJ McCarthy should be there doing that as well, as much as he possibly can and pushing it to the limit as much as he possibly can, not having the attitude that he's been wronged. There was a player, somebody told me this story, Buck Showalter, back in the day, if you remember him, the baseball manager, and it was a Twins prospect. And this is a secondhand story, so I can't confirm that it's 100% true. I'm only telling you because it's applicable and it's a good story. So another disclaimer there. But there was a story that Buck Showalter was coaching Danny Valencia, who had been a Twin, and then they moved on from him, and he had a little bit of success, but sort of bounced around. And that Showalter had basically said, Danny, do you think that all these teams got rid of you because of what? Like, what was the reason? Do you think that they were all screwing you over? And I guess Danny basically said, yeah. And he's like, and Buck said, don't you ever think it's you? So if that's the situation here, if the situation here is that he doesn't really understand and thinks that the team turned on him or the fans turned on him or the media turned on him or whatever, then that's a tough place to be, because I think he has to understand that nothing is handed to you in the NFL, no matter where you're drafted. Quarterbacks higher drafted than him have been moved on from very quickly in the NFL, or a lot of guys in his ballpark, if they didn't succeed right away. And then some of them stuck with it and found jobs elsewhere. I also think that you're in a scenario where Kyler's had some injuries and you just need to be 100% sure and ready because you could be in at any time. So if you're taking the stance of like a defensiveness of like, they're wronging me, they should have done this, that, and the other thing, rather than I need to grow from this, then I don't know what's going to work here. Jude, I wish I did have a Damon Claiborne update, but Damon was with the other group, the younger group that was sort of the development field, which is a lot of rookies, UDFAs. So I didn't really see him. Also, running in OTAs is not all that exciting. They kind of hand off, pretend to block each other, and then the guy runs for a touchdown. So I saw a lot more of Aaron Jones today, but I'll keep my eye out and see what we can see from Damon Claiborne. It was something I wanted to look for, but I just didn't get a chance today to really look at the other field. If Kirk Cousins was still the quarterback, then I might have wandered over there for a little bit, but not today. Blinky, thank you so much for the super chat. Says tonight will be heated, but I want to say I'm just a passionate Vikings fan who wants to get out of the quarterback carousel and try development. Great work. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I mean, this is what everyone should be wanting, Blinky, is for the best quarterback to win and for the team to have the most success offensively, regardless of who the quarterback is. And in some ways, it feels like there are a lot of people that invested all of their emotional capital in JJ McCarthy. And when it's not working out, there's a pushback, and it could still work out because we never know what's going to happen with the quarterback situation. If there's anything that we've learned over many years of following the Vikings, myself and you guys, is that you never really know what's going to happen with the Minnesota Vikings quarterback situation. So I don't think it's worth giving up on, but you certainly don't need to tear down Kyler Murray and say things about him that are unfair, untrue, or whatever else, just because you want JJ McCarthy. And you also don't have to apologize for everything either. You can like JJ McCarthy and you can believe he could still be a good quarterback, and you can watch what happened today and be like, I don't know, man. I don't know that was really the tone to take. And that's as far as you have to take it. You know, you don't have to take it into some wild opinion. You can just be like, yeah, I don't know, because normally when there's quarterback situations like this, everyone kind of goes to the podium and says the right thing and then moves on. But I think he showed some raw emotion today, which I also respect as well. Jude, McCarthy needs to learn that he needs to earn his spot. Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing about McCarthy. It's like these lessons don't come easy when it comes to the quarterback position because you are crowned. And when you're drafted and you have a good training camp, and Kevin O'Connell says, I've seen all the things I want to see, and JJ McCarthy, and he's our franchise quarterback and so forth. I mean, how would you not feel like, wow, we are not that far removed from when you guys got rid of a 4,300 yard, 35 touchdown, 14 win quarterback from me. And now you're going in a completely different direction. Like, I get it. It's always so much easier from our seats to be like, why don't you understand these things? Because we've watched 30 years of NFL football and seen hundreds of players and hundreds of quarterback arcs and everything else, but it's not us at 23 years old. So it is a little bit different there. Mr. Mayor, how's the relationship looking on the sidelines between KOC and the quarterbacks? Does he seem to resent JJ McCarthy as much as he did at the end of last season? I did not sense resentment from Kevin O'Connell. I did not, but OTA although, Zimmer and Kirk actually had minicamp resentment in 2018. So it is possible. But no, I did not get that sense so far. The only thing that I would say is that he looks pretty excited about like his, Kyler Murray, but I don't know. I mean, Kyler was throwing the ball really well, so there wasn't too many flustered KOC poses over on the sideline. Hard to get a read on the head coach just with one OTA practice, but I think that the way that they're going to coach every quarterback is they're going to teach them the offense at this point. And where we start to see like what you're talking about would really be training camp. When you get 2-3 weeks into training camp, everyone is very tired. They are exhausted. It's been day after day. It's super hot out there. They just want to play some football. Then you kind of get some of that like body language or whatever. KOC's not a yelling and screaming, but you can get a sense for how everyone's feeling about things at that point. At this point, I mean, the pace is not super fast and it's all like the reps. Okay, here's what you did. And now we're going to have a conversation about it. They're going to look at it in meetings and stuff tomorrow. It's just a much more methodical, like Kyler Murray's trying to learn what the words mean. Some of the new coaches are trying to learn what the words mean for the offense. We're not at a point where it should be this intense, which is, I guess, maybe one of the main points here after seeing the reaction is like deep breaths, folks, deep breath. There's a long way to go. We need some deep breaths. Matt says, I know most of the conversation about McCarthy, but can you expand on the wide receivers that stood out to you? Didn't get much into it with Dane earlier. Sure. I mean, really, obviously, Jordan Addison made a big catch. He didn't take 1,000,000 reps either. These guys are valuable merchandise. And Justin Jefferson barely took any at all, as he should. He's out there to be their leader, and he's going to get warmed up and do individual drills. And that's probably going to be about it. The last thing you need from Justin Jefferson is going up and having some, young cornerback upend you and get hurt or something. Kind of happened with Jeff Okudah last year. It was the way that he got hurt in training camps. You're not doing that. It was really two guys. Dylan Bell, who I mentioned earlier, who has a natural quickness and speed to him and might have more route running ability than was shown at Georgia. And I think that was one of the reasons that he didn't get drafted is that at Georgia, he was not running a lot of detailed routes. And I think that was mainly because of Georgia's offense. But we've said that a lot, right? We've said that about a lot of guys through the years. The Laviska Chenaults of like, yeah, just put the ball in his hands. Who was Tavon Austin, just get the ball in his hands. So there's a little bit of that to him, but the natural quickness, that first step, we saw some separation today from him. And the other one was Dante Fleming, who is a deep roster guy, but he was there last year. And I thought when Fleming was there at first, I was like, well, he's kind of this track runner looking guy, like tall and slender. So, it was like, is this guy really a wide receiver? I don't know. Right. And he proved that he could catch the ball on deep balls. So he might be someone that they're intrigued by. And he had a couple today that were nice. Kit's dental plan, any notable absences? Oh, good question. I was so focused on the wide receivers that I did not take a detailed attendance. I'm sorry, at the quarterbacks. So that is, that's on me, focused on the quarterbacks. I don't think so. I didn't see anyone else say that there was, but if somebody else saw that there was an absence that was notable, let me know. Cause I don't believe so. Usually for these, they have really good attendance. Garrett, how explosive is Damon Claiborne in person? I got to see that a lot more in rookie camp than I did today because he was on the other field. But in terms of his explosiveness jumps right off the page. And it's not just explosive as in gets the ball in quick. It's in like angularly explosive. That might be a weird way to phrase it, but you see this ability when he cuts to be very like low to the ground, not Barry Sanders, but kind of has this like quickness to him where it can cover a lot of ground fast. Jahmyr Gibbs will do this sometimes. And like a bendiness to him a little bit, but I think it's more of just like exploding from left to right or straight forward for him. It's very, very like natural athlete. So I'm intrigued to see how that ends up playing out with Damon Claiborne. But for now, he's on the side that's going to be just slowly learning, and then we'll see where he fits in training camp. I'm intrigued to see if he ends up returning some kicks along with Miles Price. They did that with Ty Chandler before Chandler got hurt. That might be a plan too. Blinky, is Jake Golday year one starter for you? No, I don't think so. I think he's year one depth, but also depth is very important in this world of, 17 games. And we've seen Cashman have injuries before. I think in an ideal world, you'd like to have Golday ahead of Ivan Pace on the depth chart. I don't think that would be if they played today, but ultimately you'd like to have him be the next man up if Eric Wilson or Blake Cashman were to get banged up, or even, fill in as an edge rusher because he's done that in college before. So I think he's going to be depth and he's going to be learning and he's going to play special teams, but I would guarantee almost that he's going to play. I mean, linebackers get banged up a lot. And that's part of the reason that you draft someone like that is like now he's depth, but later he's got a chance to be a starter for you and maybe even a really good player. Garrett, gut feeling, who's the GM? I'm still going to go with Rob Brzezinski having a role of some kind that is an elevation from his previous role, because there should be something from the Wilfs of looking at what happened here in terms of how it operated this offseason and saying that was pretty good. It wasn't this unbelievable, the entire world's talking about it. It's not like some crazy thing that they did, but it was well executed the entire offseason. So I think that you want him in a position where he is in the decision-making process and not just doing the salary cap and whatever else, but really in the decision-making process. So I think Rob will be a part of that. I don't know in what way. And gosh, I guess as of right now, I might go with Nolan Teasley because I think you're looking for someone with some outside ideas. And he's the one that is a kind of true outsider here of the group, where Reed Burkhart's been here before. Terrence Gray's been here before. That's not to be down on any of those guys. This is like you're asking me for a pure guess, but they could announce it 5 minutes from now and I'd be like, oh, well, I was completely wrong. Not in those rooms, so I don't know what they're asking or what they want to hear, but I would like the idea of bringing in someone who grew up in a process that's been so successful at evaluating players, and that's definitely Seattle. But, the Rams are always cutting edge, always seem to have one step up on everybody. So if it's John McKay, then that's a good idea too. Reed Burkhardt was a rising star in Minnesota, rose up the ranks in Denver, kind of has all the earmarks there, and I know is a very sharp evaluator. So that's what you're really looking for with any of these guys. Mr. Mayor, what positions can you actually learn about in OTAs? Can you glean anything about the running backs? I would say not really, no, that you can't, because even pass protection, how am I supposed to know? Watching what they were supposed to, because the quarterback's not getting hit. So if the running back, I guess if the running back looked completely clueless and was like, what am I supposed to football? Then I could figure it out. But most of the time, you're not really going to be able to even tell that. Catching the ball, maybe. You could definitely see from a running back if someone had a natural receiving ability. It's really the offensive and defensive lines that you can get nothing out of, but you can see linebackers in coverage, corners and safeties in coverage, wide receivers. Obviously, it's really a receivers type of camp, quarterbacks, but anything in the trenches is an absolute no. There's just no way that you're going to get any sense whatsoever of what they're supposed to be doing up there. Iconic, beautiful throw from Kyler. It was. Yeah, he had a couple of very nice ones. Very nice. Like the throw to Dylan Bell. I don't know if the team has put that out on their video or not, but if they did put that in their recap, that was pretty good. And I don't want to act like McCarthy had no good throws. The one to Ty Felton, I think it was on a 7-on-7, but he had a few. It reminded me of last year or the other times we've seen him. I didn't expect. The offseason's not over with. That's the thing when we talk about McCarthy's progress. It wasn't like, boy, if this first practice, he doesn't look like Peyton Manning, it's over, folks. They don't play until September. But, there was a throw that was kind of one that was behind and should have been maybe intercepted from McCarthy that wasn't picked off. And there were some other throws that were really nice from him today. He had, was it down? Yeah, maybe it was, I'm trying to remember who it was to that he had kind of a line drive throw that was pretty good. And he put some touch on a deep ball that the receiver couldn't run under and get it, but it was there. It was like catchable. So, I mean, McCarthy looked fine, and that we already know him. And when we're looking for signs of progress, it's really hard to figure out in a practice like this. Murray stands out because this is the first time we've ever seen him. Skull Shadow. McCarthy still hasn't learned about adulthood and professionalism. Sounds like an ex-high school boyfriend blaming the girl's mom for why she didn't like him. That is a very funny metaphor. I don't know that I would quite subscribe to that. I think it's really just McCarthy is learning what it is like in the pros. His first year, he didn't really get to see that. They won 14 games. The team still went to him after they had won 14 games. In the pros, there's ups and downs for just about everybody. There's hard times for everyone. And I also don't think that he was unprofessional with this press conference. Like, I don't think that we have to go, too far. And, in talking about this and in saying that he was unprofessional, I would not say that at all. And, God's child says he hates Minnesota sports media. What did you expect JJ to say? Well, two things. I told you that. I've also spent this entire time saying it's really not anything to overreact to. So I think you're kind of being super defensive, which McCarthy folks, fans, like super fans, are very defensive about anything that is said about JJ McCarthy. And I guess that's what it means to be a super fan. But I don't know. I told you what he could have said. He could have come to the podium and he knew he was going to get asked about Kyler Murray and the relationship. And he could have said, real or not real, that, hey, like, I'm excited to get to know Kyler and we're both chasing the same goal. Our team is trying to win a championship here. And of course I want to be the starting quarterback, but I'm going to do whatever it takes. And that might be, helping him, or it might be learning from him throughout this process. He's a veteran quarterback, so I'm thrilled to have him here, even if it means competition for me. And I've never shied away from competition, so I'm ready to go and really excited to be here this year. It's that easy. Like, it didn't have to be so earnest, and like really paint a picture of, yeah, we are on opposite sides of that room. Okay, man. Like, no one even really prodded. It was just, hey, so Kyler's here, and that's where it came across as being like a little defensive and not really knowing how to answer that question because he's never had questions like that before. And I also imagine, and this is something that younger players will do as well, is sometimes they'll take it very personally about, the coverage, whether it's, us or the fans and the reactions and things like that. But I'm sure that it hasn't gone unnoticed what people have been saying in the media about where he stands on this team. And I'm sure he's not thrilled to talk to all of us, which I wouldn't be either. So, but I just would go the other way about like the unprofessional. I would not say he was unprofessional. Would not say that. Real quick, I want to toss you guys a FanDuel question of the day. I've been too immersed in the conversation, so I want to bring that up. There is a Justin Jefferson over-under that FanDuel has dropped over at FanDuel.com. It's a little on the lower side. 1,150.5 yards is the over-under for Justin Jefferson. So over or under for Justin Jefferson. What I would say is if it ain't over, is a big problem. Something went really, really wrong if it's not over 1,150.5 yards. But what's your reaction to that? That FanDuel has just posted. Evan says, got a lot of heat for your take on JJ, but I agree. He brings up high school when asked about Kyler, and I think it points to some immaturity and need for growth. He's still young, and it shows it. I watched back my podcast with Dane. When I was looking at the comments section, I was like, what did I say? I don't remember every single word I've ever said. So I went back and listened to what I said. I was like, I don't think what I said actually matches up with what was being said in the comments. So that's pretty typical. That's pretty typical because on this show, as you guys know, nuance is king. I live stream for hours. We've got all sorts of time to break down every facet of whatever the heck we want to break down because this is my show. And so I thought that I was nuanced, and so was Dane Mizutani. Dane, the harshest thing Dane said was he thought it missed the mark, which seems fair. As I just demonstrated how easy it is to not make a big headline out of your comment, right? But he said that, and I said, look, this is something that we don't need to break down like it's a football game. We don't need to dive deep into every single word as if it has some much deeper meaning. The guy is obviously not too thrilled to be asked about the other veteran quarterback who's been in multiple Pro Bowls, who is very likely to take his job, and that showed. And that's really as far as it needs to go. But, when you're talking about it in terms of like maturity and things, there is a track record of not really doing things the way that you'd expect from someone in his position. And that was last year as well. And just a few examples on the field were him dancing into the end zone when his coaches told him not to. And every one of these things comes along with this, well, it's fine. And of course, yeah, all right, it's not that big of a deal. But it's sort of a little bit of a pattern of, if your coaches in college tell you not to do something and you do it, it's like, oh, well, like that's our meal ticket to the national championship. We're not going to move on or bench him or anything. When you do it in the NFL, it's like, now wait a minute, right? There's only a few guys who have earned the right to do whatever the heck they feel like doing out there. That's like a Mike Holmgren and Brett Favre relationship where there's a famous NFL Films clip where Holmgren tells Favre, do not run on this play. Do not scramble. And he scrambles for a touchdown. It's like, well, Favre. And that's Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. It's not JJ McCarthy. You definitely didn't earn the right to disrespect your coaches there. And then, kind of tell everybody about it. So is it the end of the world? Is it the end of the world that he got a silly penalty in a meaningless game against Green Bay? No, it's not. But do you know how many starting quarterbacks get 15-yard penalties for celebrating a 12-yard run or whatever? None. I mean, like, that's kind of the point here. It's like most of the time what you would have expected from this answer would have been put on a brave face and say you're going to do whatever it takes for the team to help them win and just, have it be that. And when it wasn't that, it's like, well, that's notable. That's an honest way to go about it, I guess, like to let the world know where you stand. But where you stand is it seems to be a little bit more about you than it is about doing the best thing for the team that pays you. So it doesn't come across the best way. I mean, that's really it. Joker, what's the best positional battle? Punter number 1, defensive tackle opposite of Redmond. Yeah, I think there's going to be 3 DTs on the field a lot. I saw Elijah Williams playing with the first team. I am very interested in Elijah Williams. He came back looking pretty big, and this is from a distance, but I noticed it. I was like, okay, Elijah Williams looks like he's serious, and he was in there because obviously Caleb Banks is not, so he was in there playing some 3-4 DE, so I'm intrigued by that. The defensive ends and how they're going to rotate them. Backup defensive tackle is certainly one. The safety position, backup corner, interior offensive line behind the starters. I'm very curious. And I think the best battle, especially because OTAs, we could see these guys so well. I think the best battle is behind Jawan Jennings. Who's behind Jawan Jennings? Who's wide receiver 4, 5? Who could be the contributing players is probably my favorite battle. Reconnected if Kyler starts, so they take the C off McCarthy's chest. They vote for captains every year. So yeah, that would probably be a little different. Skull Shadow Murray said in his press conference he had helmet hair. Yeah. Oh yeah, because somebody mentioned the hat. Murray is also from Texas, so 90 degrees today here was probably fine. I mean, he's played in Arizona and he grew up in Texas. This is not heat to him. And it wasn't that humid today out there. I thought it was pleasant. There was a little bit of a breeze. I thought it was nice. But Kyler Murray wearing a hat in the middle of the summer is not that shocking for somebody who comes from Texas and played in Arizona. Slide to play. How should someone react when someone is brought in to take their job? They wanted to light a fire under him. Stop crucifying him. I mean, this is just bizarre. Like, I think that you're not listening, or, you're just like lashing out here, because crucifying is effing insane to the reaction of what I've been talking about. It's just literally nuts. Like there's, I mean, in fact, that word, I mean, is hysterical, is literally like I'm having trouble moving on because it's so funny that you would say crucifying. Like, but you might want to AI Google what a crucifixion is. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, so there's better ways that you could present yourself in those questions to not make it so clear that you're kind of thinking about yourself there and not maybe more of the team or trying to be a good teammate or whatever else. There are different ways to come across better. I think we're allowed to say that, but apparently that is a crucifixion. That is crazy. No bunk beds for Kyler and JJ. That's funny. Mr. Mayor, he sounded like a grizzled veteran, upset that a rookie QB is in the room, except he hasn't earned the right to behave like that by a mile. Fair enough. I Abnormal found it disappointing start for JJ. I think the quarterback for the next 6 years is an Egan right now, but I don't want it to be the guy that makes it about him. And I think that's really the point. And look, I mean, it's not as deep as some people are making it. And I think that in a world like this, where football is by far the most popular sport in America and also has the least games, that we go a really long time. So you're just looking for anything to have some sort of strong take on because we love football and we're really intense about it and everything else. And look who's saying this, right? The person who's live streaming for multiple hours a night answering OTA questions because I love football and you love football and it's really fun to talk about. But I think we also need to keep perspective as well, right? I don't want to go as far as to say McCarthy is self-centered, he's selfish, just because of this comment that he made and his overall disposition. I expected something different, and I think something different would have come across better from him, especially if it was like, look, we are teammates at the end of the day. We're going to do whatever we can to push each other and get the best out of each other, and that's what teammates do. Like, that's what Carson Wentz came in talking about last year, and I know Carson came in as a backup, and it's different, but any quarterback should kind of be presenting, like, do what's best for the team rather than coming across that way. Because when you do come across this way, it's going to be a clip that they play on ESPN and they talk about and they debate, and it's going to be replayed a million times or quote tweeted a million times on social media. Now, like, you're in day one of OTAs and we've already got a stir that's going on by the backup quarterback. I mean, if you watched practice today, you would have thought, yep, JJ McCarthy's the backup quarterback. Not that the rep count was crazy in Kyler Murray's favor, but it was in Kyler Murray's favor. And you would have said one guy looks like the starter and the other guy looks like QB2. So, that's not exactly what you're hoping for, is day one of OTAs, that you have kind of a notable thing being said that's causing a lot of, conversation and everything else out there. So, and I think that, purposeful or not, I'm sure it's not from JJ McCarthy, because everything I heard about last year was that the players in the locker room wanted it bad for him. They wanted him to succeed. They loved his energy. I got no sense whatsoever. And a lot of times the place to get that sense is locker cleanout. And I remember Kevin Seifert asking several players in scrums that I was in about, like, how'd you feel about whatever? And there's ways, even if you're not trashing someone, like, there's ways to kind of be like, yeah, whatever. And I didn't get that sense. I got the sense that they really, really wanted JJ McCarthy to succeed and so forth. And when you come across the way that he did today, it has a feeling. I don't think it's intentional, but it has a feeling of like, okay, well, I guess this, yeah, like you said, like it kind of comes across like, all right, well, it's a little bit making it about you and saying you're not going to be a good teammate to Kyler Murray. And that doesn't seem right. So that's the way it came across. I don't think that that's what he meant to do. I think he just sort of meant to be like, I don't know, man, we're both on the team and it's the coach's job to coach us up. Iconic when they announced JJ's QB2, he's going to have to act like he likes it or he'll be traded. Yeah, I mean, after today, I'm sure you're going to hear some of that of like the trade conversation, everything else. And, I'm certain that KOC will probably talk next week or soon enough and quell whatever, there is to this, and he'll be asked about it. It'll kind of be old news by some point. And Slide to Play says to JJ, Kyler is not a teammate. Yeah, well, if that's your attitude and you can only ever be QB1 or you don't want to play football, well, then don't play football, because there's a lot of quarterbacks who have to be backups at times or who have to compete for their jobs at times. If you never want to compete at all, ever, or you're going to, just be unhappy and whatever else, and you're not going to be a good teammate if you're having to compete for your job. It's not been named, by the way. Then I don't know, like then this league is going to be pretty tough for you. That's the way I'd put it. If you're not willing to be a good teammate while competing, this league's going to be tough for you. Sam Darnold was a good teammate while competing with JJ McCarthy because he was a veteran. He's been through it, but I also think that's Sam Darnold. And as far as, look, when it comes to, he's going to have to work to be QB2. He's going to have to show command of the offense, and he's going to have to, continue to improve on the throwing and all that sort of stuff. And he's going to have to be a good teammate and everything else, or they're going to go with Carson Wentz. Because look, Carson Wentz played better than him last year. So he has to beat out Carson Wentz too. Rach, the hardcore McCarthy truthers are a cult. Well, I don't think of it that way. I think of it more as that if you get your guy as a franchise quarterback, it is so valuable. And you feel like every single year you've got a chance because you've got your guy. And look, I mean, I've been using Herbert. He's not a perfect quarterback. He doesn't have a Super Bowl. Ask any Chargers fan. I'm sure 90% of them are like, someday it's going to happen because we've got him. And I think last year, with the way it started and the way that they had talked about him, and even like responsible over here for reporting on the joint practice that went really well. But I also came out of that feeling very good about where McCarthy was at and everything else. And then it was a huge, huge letdown last year. And then to have them go out, if they went out and got Geno Smith, we'd be like, JJ is probably going to start. But they went out and got Kyler Murray. They went out and got the one single guy that you'd say it's not really competition. It's the only guy that was available. You'd say that. If they had Tua, you'd be like, yeah, I mean, Tua's been bad lately. But Kyler hasn't. He has not been bad. Now, he hasn't been flawless, but over his last 2 years of playing in the NFL, he's been far from a bad quarterback. And over his career, at times, he's been an excellent quarterback. So they've got the one guy that you can't really put on the facade and say, oh yeah, it's really a, competition. I mean, he had options. He picked here because he wanted to be here as the starter. Purple Kool-Aid says, we criticize players and coaches for not giving real answers all the time. He didn't say anything crazy. People are reacting way too hard. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know that we actually do criticize players for not giving real answers. I mean, I don't know how often I've done that, and said, how dare you not give me a real answer? But no, he didn't say anything crazy, but I also think that there were better ways to approach that wouldn't have made this much noise. Yeah. Yeah, not likely that the Step Brothers thing is happening. Yep, I agree with that. Mr. Mayor would honestly not mind trading JJ McCarthy for whatever, even a conditional 2028 7th rounder would be worth it if it shuts up the McCarthy stands. Well, this is a little bit of a 2020s problem, a modern era problem. And I was saying to Jonathan Harrison, producer here on Purple Insider, earlier, because we were chatting about this, and just trying to figure out what I wanted to say this evening about it. And I was saying to Jonathan that what ends up happening in especially internet spaces, but probably all sports fandom, is somebody mentioned a cult earlier. Cult is a pretty aggressive word, but the tribalism is a real thing where people sort of separate into sides. And I am not a politics person, but my understanding is this happens pretty strongly in that universe. Is people separate into, I am over here and I'm planting this flag and I'm going to spend every single day fighting for this sports opinion. And then other people are, I'm going to stand over here and whatever. And the reality of sports or any subject is that it's all complicated. And so if you've just decided that no matter what, you're going to log on every day and fight for the honor of JJ McCarthy, because that's the tribe you're in. I mean, how can you really have a conversation about football? And the thing I like so much about football and why we end up with these long, epic live streams and everything else is because we can get into the nuance. And that's really the point is, I think the biggest takeaway here to me is, this would be my suggestion to JJ McCarthy, is if this is the way you're going to view it, it's not going to help you. That would be my biggest thing. If you're going to view it as you sit over here, I'll sit over here, and whatever, dude. For a quarterback who's been through as much as Kyler Murray, who's as good at throwing a football as Kyler, who also ran an offense that was complicated in Arizona the last couple years and has had as much experience as him and has seen every defense. And, Kyler even threw a little shot across the bow at Brian Flores. He's like, I've had some success against Brian Flores. I'm like, oh yeah, he actually has. But, like he's seen a lot of stuff. And if you're not going to take the approach that working together is better than working against each other when you're on the same team, it's not going to help you. It's not going to, I don't think it's going to ruin his life or his career, but it's not going to help you. And that's where I would have kind of my bigger takeaway is, I think you need to readjust a little bit, probably your approach to this quarterback competition. And also saying, stuff like, well, the organization's going to do what it's going to do or whatever. It's like, all right, well, now you kind of sound like you're kind of coming across like everyone's against you. And I don't think that that's really the case. I think that Kevin O'Connell would love to see JJ McCarthy succeed. I think Josh McCown would love to see him succeed. I think his teammates would love to see him succeed. Right? So no, the organization's not against you and the media is not against you and the fans aren't against you. Maybe some of those idiotic Twitter accounts who just tweet memes all the time, they might be against you, but I don't think that Kyler is against. I mean, when you listen to Kyler, it was like, and he didn't know what JJ said. So he was just like, yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, he's, I'll work with him, whatever he wants to do. And it's like, yep, that's a veteran quarterback's approach to that question. So I think that working with Kyler and Carson and Max and KOC and McCown and whoever else is the only way to get better. You don't do it on your own. So I guess that's what I thought coming out of it more than anything. He didn't shame the Vikings franchise. There's much worse stuff that's been said, truth to all rumors, at press conferences than what happened today. It's more of just, is this how he's going to do it? Or does he think that this sort of makes him come across as like, I'm a hard-nosed competitor, I'm not going to give an inch to Kyler? It's like, because that really, I don't know that that's the way that this works, right? So, but this is what you find out over the years as you grow up. And if you have the attitude that you can always learn and get better and improve and learn from other people and work with other people, you're going to get farther than if you try to do it on your own. So, Purple Kool-Aid says, maturity has been in question before. Media training is something someone who wants to be a franchise quarterback needs to learn. Yeah, I don't think he needs training necessarily. I mean, I honestly think that he needs to, based on what he said, based on the what he told us, he needs to kind of shift a little bit, I think. Just shift to, I work here, and people who come into the league, they don't realize you work there, but you work there. And I'll tell you, man, like, I don't think any of us really understand when we're a certain age of like what that means to work there, right? Because it feels like, well, I'm I belong here. So this is mine. Right. But you work here and your job is to be ready regardless of what role they give you. And if part of that job is to be a good teammate to Kyler Murray, then you should probably do that as well, right? It's just, and if you win the job, then well, great, that's fantastic. It's not, but it doesn't increase your odds of winning the job to like not talk to Kyler Murray. It's okay. So so I don't know if it's media training. In fact, I think JJ is usually really good with the media, but I also think that he wears his heart on his sleeve, and people who do that, who run hot, who are, that's very on the emotional side for him as a younger guy. I think we see a lot of this stuff, and then we end up talking about it a lot more than it needed to be. Matt says, I know it seemed unlikely that they'll trade McCarthy before the season starts, but if this is going to be his attitude, do you think they do a swap with Richardson and give both a fresh start? I wouldn't hate it. I would not hate it. I've always been in the camp of there is no reason to give up on a JJ McCarthy, and he has opportunity to improve, and this is good for him. It's a good situation for him, but you have to recognize it first, though. You have to recognize that it's a good situation for you and what you can learn and what you can take out of it. And if you don't recognize that, then it's not going to change. It's not going to get better unless you recognize it. So if it becomes an uncomfortable situation, and like, you don't need a distraction. You need Kyler Murray to win football games this year. Not that I think that JJ McCarthy being unhappy is going to cause Kyler Murray to overthrow people. It sure as heck didn't today. But if you're looking for, all right, well, these quarterbacks are basically the same at this point. Their franchises have sort of, run out of time with them. Then a swap would make a lot of sense. I don't think it's that time yet to do that. So Son of Beavers, the world needs to know, how did Max Brosmer look? He was quarterbacking on the other field that I wasn't watching, so I did not see how Max looked. But I do know that Max is going to be a good teammate, and he'll be ready. And we should give Max his credit, by the way. Max did help them win a game against the Giants last year. Give Max his credit, but he's going to be someone. Max, I know he didn't play well when he got into the game. He had to play Seattle. That was tough. The Lions defense, who knows this team really well. I think Max's approach is exactly the one that JJ needs to borrow from what we heard from Max last year. I mean, I know, undrafted guy, but he gets it. So he's a little older too. Skull Shadow, we still don't have a franchise quarterback on the roster. This will be entertaining at best. Or top 5 pick at best. Enjoy the chaos. I would not count Kyler Murray out, man, because the more that you look into where he was and what he was still able to accomplish, and then, I mean, the look on his face today when we were asking him about playing with these receivers, he's just like, dude, it's ridiculous. And I think it is a top 3 group of weapons in the entire NFL. This is not something he's had before. And I asked him, and the Vikings tweeted this out, so you could go listen to that quote if you want, but I asked him about working with Kevin O'Connell. And again, like, the face lit up of just how good of a communicator Kevin O'Connell is. And if you ask anyone in Arizona, they will tell you how close he was with Jonathan Gannon. Like, those two really clicked, and there's some similar energy. I think, maybe O'Connell is better at the podium than Gannon was, but some similar, like, positive energy there from Jonathan Gannon. I think that could be really, really good for Kyler Murray to have somebody who is really enthusiastic and who is very good at explaining the why behind things. Like, that's Kevin O'Connell's thing. I think he's really good at coaching this offense by now. And the experience that Sam Darnold had, he can really take away from, because that was a veteran who knew other offenses that had similarities, but was not exactly the same. So I would not put the cap on Kyler Murray here as, well, just whatever. We'll see what happens this year. I'm not guaranteeing that. I just think that when you look at the talent level, the supporting cast, the coaching staff, and what Kyler was able to do at times in his career with a pretty mediocre, that's being polite, franchise, I could see it. And look, if Sam Darnold hadn't come in here and won 14 games, then I would probably be more skeptical of the upside. But I think since he did, like there's definitely a possibility there. Mr. Mayor, Kyler was Offensive Rookie of the Year, multi-time Pro Bowler. He led a bleep team to being the last undefeated team in the league a few seasons ago, and has at times been discussed as a potential MVP, right? He's had stretches. He's had a lot of stretches. And what the goal should be for the Vikings is, how do you even that out over a season? And the stretches often correlate to the schedule. If you go back to 2024, he is in the MVP conversation the first half of the year in 2024. While their defense fell apart, they blew some games close. But another thing is they ran into, in 3 weeks, they played Seattle. There might have been a 4-week stretch where they played Seattle twice and the Vikings. So 2 or 3 out of the 4 games in this stretch against elite defenses, and those elite defenses gave him problems. Now, the question is, was that because of him? Was that because they didn't have enough around him? I mean, he's played well when he's played against the Minnesota Vikings, right? He played well against them in 2022, and Arizona kind of blew that game. And then they definitely blew the game in 2024 against the Vikings. So, he's had some good games against teams like that, but also it might depend on like how strong your team is, because this is something I've really been thinking about a lot with the NFC is whoever has the strongest rosters. There is not a quarterback who is just the driving factor of a team. It's always who has the best roster around them. So if we reverse engineer that, and the Cardinals had one of the worst rosters around him, like that's asking Kyler to do a lot. I don't think the Vikings have the best roster in the NFC. I think it can be improved, and I think it can be very good. I don't think it's the best, but I also think he falls into a similar category as a lot of other quarterbacks who have a lot of good things that they do and some shortcomings, and they can be beat on a given week by a really good defense. But if you give them a complete team, they've got a really good chance to win. I think Brock Purdy is like this. I think that Dak Prescott can be like this at times as well. Jalen Hurts is shown to be like this. These are quarterbacks who have won a lot of football games. And I think that Kyler could potentially do that as well if the roster is strong and they stay healthy and he fits with these wide receivers. Blinky says, is Demond Claiborne looked at as Aaron Jones' replacement down the line? It's hard to say that because he's a 6th round draft pick. So can you really point to a guy, it's a 6th round draft pick, and say, yeah, he's definitely going to be Aaron Jones' replacement? I also don't think it's too hard, if it works out, to see a thunder and lightning situation with Jordan Mason, because Mason was really good last year, but he didn't break a lot of big runs, and Claiborne has that speed to him. So what if you have, a Jordan Mason that, plays, 60% of the snaps, 65% of the snaps, and then you have Claiborne mixing things up after Aaron Jones, which is probably the end of the road after this year. I could see it, but there's a long way to go for Demond Claiborne, because we like Ty Chandler when he came in. We like Kene Nwangwu, and not all these guys who are the later round draft picks that have lightning speed end up working out. So Big Hig, how did our draft picks look today? So the 2 guys that I saw the most of were Charles Demings and Jake Golday. I mean, Dominique Orange, big, they're not doing a lot up there, but Golday and his movement skill, it's not quite as fluid as Andrew Van Ginkel, who is, you would think from the way Van Ginkel moves, he looks like he's about 220 pounds. He's like 240. So it's not quite that. Like, he's a big dude, but he covers a lot of ground in coverage. And you could see that movement skill that they would have liked. It's going to smooth itself out as he plays more and more, but being that good of an athlete at 6'4" and 240 pounds, you notice that guy out there immediately. So I definitely noticed him run around in coverage. And then Demings is another guy where when we talk about what the Vikings should be drafting, who you're trying to build your team around, the one thing I respect from this draft class is that they went toward guys that were 90-something percentile in something. So Dominique Orange, 90 whatever percentile in size and strength. Caleb Banks, 99th percentile in size and strength. Max Bredesen, 90 whatever percentile as a blocker, or Damon Claiborne in his speed. Charles Demings is that. I mean, Charles Demings is a freakish athlete, and his movement skill, which you could see right away, is it's not just a track skill. I mean, he is very, very light on his feet. And did I watch every single rep? No, but I did make a point to focus on him a couple times just to see what it looks like. It stands out. He's going to need work. He went to Stephen F. Austin. It's going to take time. But I was impressed by the way Charles Demings looked. And I also wrote about him over at purpleinsider.football. So make sure you go check that out. I would love if you guys gave it a read. Purple Kool-Aid, Kirk Cousins would have streaks where he was on fire almost every season. We get dark horse MVP chatter. He's shown promise, but we haven't seen it in a game yet. Oh, you mean like with making the Murray comparison? I really think that there is legitimately a lot of similarities between Kirk and Kyler. But the thing with Kirk is under KOC, he went 17-8 and played more consistent football than we ever saw during Zimmer, except for maybe 2019. But I don't know if that was even consistent. That was like Kirktober and then everything else. With Kyler, though, that's really the main goal. It has been stretches and streaks, but it has not been full seasons all the time. And that's what has to happen here, or you are going to end up as a 9-win type of team where you win 5 out of 6 and then stumble the rest of the way. So it really is going to be fascinating to see how they try to smooth out the rough edges there when Kyler is not having the greatest games. And this is where, though, here's an interesting thing for you that Mike Sando brought up when he was on this show a few weeks ago. Mike Sando had this stat, and this really blew my mind, that during Kyler's career, no quarterback has been let down more by their defense and special teams than Kyler Murray. By, I think it was expected points added. That was his number. And I was like, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy that, he's not had good defenses. He has not had, I don't know that they've ever had a good defense. I don't think that the Arizona Cardinals ever had a top 10 defense when he was there. And special teams, like that's something I would have never thought of, but apparently the Cardinals were trash at that too. As good at special teams as they were building a gym with regular floorboards. So, there's those ups and downs when you live or die on whether your quarterback is playing like an MVP. I mean, this team last year won with, I forget what it was. Was it 3 net yards for Max Brosmer? Like this team can win grind fest games where maybe your quarterback is not at his best. That's something that Arizona just couldn't do. It was, if Kyler's not great, they're not going to win. Danny, good to see you. Longtime listener, Danny. Got to learn to downplay stuff that's not an issue. Oh, you're talking about with McCarthy. Yeah, we're both here competing. I'm focused on myself, coming in here every day, working hard, stacking good days. Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, and you're an adult, Danny, and you know how to give that answer because you've heard it a million times from NFL quarterbacks. And I think that, I think it came off probably worse than he meant it to be, but the way that it came off was very much like not going to work together with that guy. He could stay over in his corner. I'll stay over in mine. And that's just not a position that you want him to be taking right now when he's supposed to be also learning as well as improving. So, Rach, if the situation was reversed and Kyler answered the question JJ did, every one of these JJ stands would be asking for Kyler to get cut. Yeah, it's actually funny because Kyler, who as a younger guy probably had some answers like this or dispositions like this as a younger player, though he was having, more success as a younger guy, but probably made, or had similar type of things. And that's why people talked about the personality or whatever it may be. And that's where you have to mature and you have to go through stuff and you have to see different things and learn from them and so forth. And that's what JJ McCarthy has to do here. But you're right. If Kyler Murray said he can go sit over in his own corner and don't talk to me, everyone would have been saying, this is typical Kyler and his selfish personality. Oh my gosh. The pearl clutching would have been insane if Kyler Murray had said that. But the standard is a little bit different for a veteran quarterback who's been through a lot. rather than somebody who's new to this still. Planet Yevon, I wonder if KOC will let McCarthy implode because it makes a move to trade or release him that much easier. I mean, in the best case scenario, because a lot of you are now trading JJ McCarthy, we don't have to do that over a comment in several comments in an OTA practice. I think the best case scenario for Kevin O'Connell is to work with both quarterbacks. Obviously, you're getting Kyler Murray ready to start as QB1, but doing everything you can to get JJ McCarthy on track, to get him to develop as much as he can. And if we compare JJ McCarthy, even despite the ups and downs, his physical tools, his playmaking, his knowledge of the offense, I mean, I know that Wentz did play better than him last year outside of when his arm was about to fall off, but you'd prefer to have JJ McCarthy potentially ascending as your backup quarterback rather than having, Carson Wentz or Max Brosmer or anybody else. You'd like to see, that's the ideal scenario. So I don't think that KOC wants to sabotage JJ McCarthy, or as you said, let him implode. I think you still want to pour into him, and still you might end up needing him in the season. You might end up needing him longer term into next year if he is impressive to you. I guess today, with the way that he presented himself in this quarterback battle, it kind of made it feel like, well, if I'm not the guy, then whatever, man, which is going to make it harder for KOC to be able to do that, to be able to, continue his progression, if that's going to be the disposition. But still, even after today, it's not like McCarthy even had a bad practice. I thought it was totally fine. So you want him to continue to be ready to play and develop and get to a point where if it's week 8 and you're 6-2 and Kyler Murray breaks a finger and he's going to be out for 3 weeks, well, you want your quarterback to win 2 of those 3 games. You'd like it to be JJ McCarthy rather than Carson Wentz. So if you're KOC, I think you're still trying to walk that line, but you can only do it if McCarthy wants the coaching now and wants, KOC to, still pour into him and teach him and whatever else. If he's not going to have the attitude that he's still learning and developing and growing and just thinks he's been victimized, well, then he probably won't learn a whole lot. It's really up to him. It is really 100% up to him. Dan says, watch the interview. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be based on the show with Dane. All due respect to you guys, though. Well, I mean, I really don't think that... I think that a lot of just people's reaction is to what we've said was way more defensive than based on what we actually talked about. I think Dane was fair in saying that it maybe should have had a different approach. But it's funny you say that because I listened back to my own thing and I was like, I don't really hear anywhere. It's more of just sort of breaking down what he said and talking about how it took me by surprise. We've talked to JJ McCarthy many times and it's never been like that. So it was like, man, I don't know. That's really surprising. That was really my takeaway from earlier. And also, Dane said missed the mark. I thought that was a fair way to put it. And then, I'm looking at the comments and it's like, you guys should go jump off the highest bridge in Minnesota. It's like, I don't really understand where this is coming from. But I also think that this is the way everything works now. It's like, instead of working through the conversation, it's like attack someone, insult them. That's what you do. So I don't really even know what to do with that when that happens. Punisher, you could say all that, but I don't think anyone here can comprehend the level of hate and insult he has faced. I'm still seeing 9 memes. No, and look, I've talked about that. And that's what I'm trying to convey is to have some empathy for where JJ McCarthy stands right now. Last year he goes into the season thinking that he is QB1. He's going to be the Vikings franchise quarterback. They're going to go to the playoffs. They're going to compete and it's going to go great. And then by week 2, he's hurt. And by week, 12, it feels like it's kind of over. It just sort of comes apart and things happen so fast. And then on top of that, you are being nonstop heckled over one kind of silly comment in a press conference after you're excited about a win. I hate that stuff. And I told you guys with Sam Darnold, there was nothing that made me happier than Sam Darnold just dunking on the entire universe by winning the Super Bowl, because that guy got memed into, eviscerated with the memes and everything else, and every broadcaster and every commenter and everybody else. I mean, people just threw that seeing ghosts thing at him for so many years, no matter how good he was, every bad game. I can't stand that. I can't stand athletes being bullied and stuff like this over silly little nonsense. And the internet is just incredibly mean. And I know that myself from my comment sections that I see all the time. I'm like, yeah, why do you listen if you hate me so much? But whatever, I keep driving my algorithm. That's fine with me. But also, hey, I actually get to say this, because in 1 month, I'll be able to say I'm a man, I'm 40. So it's a little bit different. So I do have empathy for that. I think that's really tough on athletes today. And, Olivia Miles made a comment the other day for the Lynx. She said something about how, she doesn't listen to the criticism or whatever. And I was like, man, who is criticizing Olivia Miles? She's been a star since kind of day one. And I was like, oh yeah, right. The internet. There's always somebody heckling, always somebody saying something, always somebody making a meme or whatever else. And I think that makes this much harder on a young quarterback than it would have been years ago, where it still would have been hard. Matt says he looked tense and defensive, showing the scars. I feel for him, but he does have to improve to get there. Yeah, I mean, the body language was not what we're used to seeing from J.J. McCarthy, who has typically been really comfortable in front of a lot of people. So it comes down to, can you shake off all the stuff that's happened and put it aside and focus on development and getting better? And rather than looking at Kyler Murray as an adversary, looking at him as a teammate. That's what's going to have to come down to. That is funny. Purple Kool-Aid. People are treating Kyler versus JJ like an election, and the winner will be determined in the comments section. That's funny. That's funny. Charles says JJ haters. I mean, Charles, when you start with JJ haters, you're immediately like not in a good place. Remember, the Vikings drafted him, the same the Vikings dumped Kirk to let Darnold walk, the same coach that bailed on Goff, and the only thing on his resume is taking another team's Hall of Fame quarterback. So this is somehow about Sean McVay? A lot of you are just a little bit confused, it seems like, about what the conversation is about. Somehow Sean McVay took astray, the Super Bowl winning coach. I don't know. Drew, who on the Vikings brain trust let Sam go? All of them. They're all responsible. They're all responsible for that. And Kyler Murray is cleaning that up. Joker, will Kyler Murray look more like Sam Bradford or like Kirk Cousins throwing in practice? Bradford could make a QB coach faint with the way he threw the ball. No one's going to match Sam Bradford. It will take many more. It'll take another 20 years. I'll be saying I'm a man, I'm 50 or 60 by the time I see someone throw the football like Sam Bradford in practice, because that was insane. That the accuracy, I mean, there were entire practices where the ball never hit the turf at all. And he wasn't perfect for sure on the field, but he was really good. And look, Bradford is another example. My gosh, Bradford, a guy who just got hammered on and hammered on. They used to go so hard on Sam Bradford. Look how much money this guy made versus how many wins and everything else. And he really did prove people wrong as a Viking. It just didn't work out with his health. And he had setbacks because of his health and everything else. I always want that person to succeed. I wanted it for Sam Bradford. I wanted it for Sam Darnold. I want it for J.J. McCarthy. You'd love to see somebody who gets knocked down, get up off the mat, but you can't. But the difference between Darnold and McCarthy is that Darnold had the right attitude. And I don't know that he always did. I'm not sure. I didn't cover him with the Jets or with the Carolina Panthers, and he may have matured his way into that. But Sam Darnold's attitude, you could be darn sure, was one of the main reasons he was where he was in the position to have, like, think about him going from Carolina starting quarterback. That team was garbage. The coach was horrible, had no idea what he was doing in the NFL. Not sure he has any idea what he's doing in college either at this point. And that was the guy who gets fired. Darnold comes back in, plays pretty well, and Carolina says, get the hell out of here. We're going to go draft our quarterback and make a pretty rough trade with the Chicago Bears in order to do it. So get out of here. No team gives him a starting job. He goes to San Francisco. They've got a number, 3 overall draft pick, and he beats the guy out and then is a great teammate. This is a lesson for J.J. McCarthy. You can either take these or not. It doesn't matter. I don't care, and Sam Darnold doesn't either, whether you take him or not. But he was a great teammate to Brock Purdy, and they worked together, and Darnold learned, and he grew, and he is repeatedly cited that year in San Francisco as a backup, as the reason he's succeeded the last 2 years. There's lessons everywhere. It's just if you want to take them or not. That's what it comes down to. But your question was about throwing the ball in practice. I mean, it doesn't, I don't know how to put this exactly, but it doesn't have quite of the zip, I would not say, of Sam Bradford. Bradford was like 6'3" and was super strong. So Murray obviously is a little bit. He's quite undersized. It's like spiral wise, and it glides through the air. It doesn't flutter. It's not like, this is so weird describing how someone's catching a ball, but it has this lightness to it. It just floats into the receiver's hands. Even if he's throwing it hard, it sort of just clicks with them. It's not a heavy ball, which is kind of what J.J. McCarthy throws, but it's also not like he doesn't have accuracy, which was Nick Mullins. And I don't want to make it seem like he can't ramp up a little more velocity, but that's just kind of how it looks coming out of his hand and into the receiver's hands. So it's somewhere in between, because, Kirk was good at anticipation throws as well. And Kirk would have some ugly ducks sometimes, but he threw a nice spiral most of the time as well. Son of Beavers, lukewarm take. KOC can't develop rookie quarterbacks. JJ, Max, Jaron Hall, he works better with veterans to fix them, like Kirk, Sam, and Carson. I mean, I think every coach would have it a lot easier with veteran quarterbacks. I think this does play in Kyler Murray's favor, that he doesn't have to teach the ground floor. But also, I mean, look who you're talking about there. It's 1 first-round quarterback and then an undrafted free agent and a 5th rounder. I'm not sure that I mean, everybody's bad at quarterbacks until they're not. This was like it's like how some universities have a bunch of quarterback busts and then one of them works out. It's like, well, you're bad at quarterback development in college until you're not, until that one guy works out. If you're the New Orleans Saints, my gosh, growing up, it was like, if the New Orleans Saints could only get a quarterback, they must be cursed. And then all of a sudden Breeze comes around and it's like, you're cursed until you're not. The Buffalo Bills, between Jim Kelly and Josh Allen. What? I mean, you have J.P. Lossman and Kelly Holcomb and Drew Bledsoe going back a little farther than that. It's just a total mess. And it's like, here's Josh Allen, and suddenly you are the quarterback whisperer. I mean, I can't, it's way too small of a sample to say he can't develop someone. He's also worked with J.J. McCarthy truly for just 1 year. And if they hadn't put all of the eggs in the basket of McCarthy, we might be saying, man, JJ's made a lot of progress because he was healthy and he's developed and everything else. But I also think, though, today, it did draw me back a little bit to when Diana Rossini said that in one of her articles that one of the reasons they moved on from Darnold to go to JJ was they were afraid if they kept JJ as a backup for Darnold, even for another year, that they would, quote, lose him, I think was in the article. And I was like, well, that's quite a comment. But he certainly didn't dispel that today. Jim saying there's a high hey, man, yeah, there's not a high chance that Kyler Murray gets hurt and none of this matters. There is a chance, for sure. There is a chance that happens. Yes, that's true. Purple Kool-Aid, if Kyler comes in and lights it up, everyone will be happy. I disagree. No one will ever be happy. Not everyone. They weren't happy when Sam Darnold was lighting it up. They couldn't wait for him to fail and get rid of him. You could say that sounds way cynical of me now, but there's a very high percentage of fans who were hoping that he would just not win that playoff game and that they would get to J.J. McCarthy. And so I think the same thing will exist. As long as McCarthy's here, that will exist. And the evidence is in the Justin Fields. Someone made the Justin Fields comparison to me the other day, and I thought it was perfect. It was like, that's yes. Because Chicago Bears fans, just a lot of them would not move on from the Justin Fields thing. I'm not saying you have to move on from McCarthy, but like they were so adamant that like this is their franchise quarterback that no matter what happened, they didn't let it go until they got Caleb Williams. So as long as he's here, there's going to be those folks for sure. That if Kyler has a bad game, it's going to be like, why aren't you playing JJ McCarthy? High boy time. Jefferson 2,000 yards with Murray, and watch out for Dylan Bell. I agree on the second part. 2,000 is high. That was the FanDuel question of the day, by the way. FanDuel's rolled out a bunch of over-unders over at FanDuel.com, and one of them is Justin Jefferson, 1,150.5 yards is his over-under. That, I mean, anything can happen, but that one feels like it should be an easy over. Scamping around, don't want to miss any more of Jets Prime. Yeah. High boy time, live in Arizona, and it was like Murray was blackballed from the team. That organization as a whole, just you would not tell anyone to shape the way that they build a football team around them. Purple Kool-Aid, Arizona has been regularly rated as one of the worst franchises by players. Not a good indicator of success. Totally agree. And I actually thought when they hired Jonathan Gannon, they kind of did a good job of bringing in a coach that had been, had a good lineage. And then what did they do? They had a decent season, and then they were actually okay out of the gate. Blew a game against San Francisco, but should have been probably 3-2 if Marvin Harrison could catch a ball. And then Murray goes down, they lose a bunch, and they tank, and that's it. And now we're here. So to say that they gave Kyler everything they could is a very funny statement. If you've done any research at all on Arizona, no, they didn't. Out of the gate, they gave him an amateur coach. They gave him a college coach who played in a system that doesn't work in the NFL. And he did really well in it with DeAndre Hopkins. And they went to the playoffs, and he went 9-5 as a starter that year and had a great season. And that was his highest graded year. And then he got hurt after they shredded a lot of the roster, and it was brutal. He's coming back from an ACL in 2023, and there's some ups and downs. They get him a better coach, but not an experienced coach or an experienced offensive coordinator. The roster around him is absolutely brutal. And my favorite stat, I'll say a million times, and I was sharing this stat today at OTAs with other media members. Over the last 3 years, he's 13-17 as a starter, and anyone else is 2-19. I think that tells you a lot about the Arizona Cardinals. So, Taslios, for the long term, I hope McCarthy could sit and learn. I don't see Murray being affordable next year. Well, it really depends on, one, what he thinks of being in Minnesota and how it goes. But let's say it goes well enough and he really wants to be in Minnesota, sort of like Daniel Jones in Indianapolis. It's workable. It's workable in the year 2027. It was not workable with Kirk's contracts that consistently took up 20%-ish of the salary cap and were this big anchor immovable object at a time where the cap was not accelerating. If you go look, Pelissero had a tweet about this a while back, but if you look at how much the salary cap has accelerated over the last even 5 years, it's insane. So now a $40 million contract is like if Kirk had made $15 million. Back when he first signed. And now the top quarterbacks are getting 60, but he's not going to be asking for 60. I wouldn't think. I guess if he is, no one's doing that, more likely than not. But Daniel Jones has set a precedent. If you play really well for a team, but there's still some question, $44 million over a couple of years is a really plausible number, but they've set up their salary cap to be able to deal with that. They are surprisingly younger now than they were just a year ago. So that's, it's workable. It's not an impossibility anymore like it used to be. And a lot of the teams, we went through this the other night. Was it 5 of 7 playoff teams had paid their quarterbacks last year in the NFC? So, Hans, Good to hear Golday is moving well. Saw a combine highlight of him tripping on the turf. Yeah, I'm sure they made fun of that. But if you saw his games in Cincinnati, movement is a thing for him. He just moves really well for somebody his size. He's got a little bend as a rusher, but I think what he does best is backpedals into space. And then if he needs to accelerate forward, closing, it's Anthony Barr, like, really. I mean, I think that is as good of a comparison as what, like, Anthony Barr for how he moves, as it is for someone like Andrew Van Ginkel. Kind of similar there. Beal. Easy for Kyler to come in as the veteran versus JJ, who from the beginning has been needing to prove he's a starting quarterback. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now you're lying in the second part, but sure. I mean, Arizona is tanking, and I think they're doing a good job. I really do. I actually think that Arizona's doing the right thing. They're tanking. If you have Kyler Murray there and you win 8 games, what good does it do you? You need to tank. You need to lose a lot of games, and you need to get high draft picks because no one's coming to Arizona as a free agent except for poor Tyler Algier, who they should trade. So, yeah, I mean, look, everyone in Arizona over the last couple of years that I have talked to has talked about his really good relationship with Jonathan Gannon and how he ran a more of a complete offense, but there wasn't enough there. Their defense was poor in 2024, and the start of 2025, the weapons and the offensive line in the start of 2025 really struggled. When I watched that back on tape, I was like, geez, 2024 offensive line was actually pretty good. Sometimes I'm just a little bit confused on some of the comments, but I'm doing my best. Blunts between us girls. How was Juwan? That's funny. Thank you for changing the subject. Big. That's the best way I could describe Juwan Jennings. Take the aggregators can take that as a detailed report from Purple Insider. No, Juwan looked good. He looked good. He made a couple plays. I mean, Juwan Jennings is big though. And I was thinking about this. This is because I was standing next to Mike Rand from the Star Tribune. You know, he's been on the show a number of times. I've been on his show. And we were just chatting and we're like, when is the last time the Vikings had a big receiver like this? 6'3", like 220 pounds, might be a little more than that, who was actually good. So Laquan Treadwell was big, but he was not good. When was the last, I mean, is it Marcus Robinson? Like, when was the last Viking receiver who was big and good? Who could kind of, because usually Diggs and Thielen, I mean, Thielen is big, but he's like 200 pounds big. He's not 225 pounds. Maybe I'm giving I don't know, what's Juwan listed? I think he's listed at like 215. I would go at least 220, but either way, 215, Thielen was not that big. He's big, but he's not that big. Like, you could confuse Juwan Jennings for a modern tight end. So, like, I'm not sure. I am actually not sure because Irv Smith sort of played wide receiver 3 in 2019, but that doesn't really count. Rach says one of the things that I came to appreciate about Sam Darnold was frankly how boring he was. I think being boring in the media is ultimately positive for a franchise quarterback. I agree with that. I mean, it's not so much. I thought that he could be interesting at times, but Sam Darnold was just not going to let you in. And he probably learned that very early in his career. I've seen that even from him as he won the Super Bowl. I mean, there's NFL films caught a couple little things of Darnold where you really, like when he hugged his parents and stuff, gosh, that was awesome. But I mean, he's just not going to open up to you at the podium. He's not going to go out in front of the world and be like, let me tell you all my feelings. And JJ McCarthy has been that really since day one. And when he's winning, everybody loves it. And when he's losing, then it comes across sometimes as not really reading the room quite. And that might have fallen under the category of today. So, you know, it was one thing that I'm sure Sam Darnold developed over the years, though, of like, well, you know, I'm going to answer the questions. And I never felt like he was disrespectful. He always answered the questions, but it was also who Sam Darnold was, though. When Sam Darnold came in And the first thing we're asking him is like, well, how do you feel about the quarterback competition? And what does he say? Man, I'm just going to be a great teammate, do everything I can. And we'll see what happens. And that's going to be up to the coaches, but I know I'm going to control what I can control. We can all answer this question of how you just give a it doesn't have to even be disingenuous. That should actually be your approach. I mean, that was the thing with Darnold, is I think a lot of it was actually genuine. It was like, I'm not going to be, overly emotional up here. I'm just going to tell you guys that I can only control showing up every day, being a good teammate, running the offense, learning all I can learn, and then we'll see what happens. And that's why McCarthy has to take that approach, because you don't know. Somebody else, made a comment about an ACL or something, but it could happen. So you got to be ready. And if you're only going to be happy if the other guy gets hurt or something, like, that's a pretty tough place to be in. Son of Beavers, I did not look for Gavin Bartholomew. I assume he was out there. Do I have my roster? No, I don't have it in my pocket. There were so many names. There's so many people. So I did a bad job of taking attendance, but I assume Bartholomew was on the other field. I saw a lot of TJ Hawkinson and Josh Oliver today. Yeah, high boy time. No one knows how it's going to go. Yeah, that's for sure. So, Purple Kool-Aid, who's looking like they belong and who doesn't? Too early for that, man. It's just, I hate to give that answer because I want to give you something. But, that's why I've been mentioning Dylan Bell, because he did look like he belonged. Bell, kind of right off the bat. In terms of who doesn't, I mean, all the guys in the development field are not there yet. So, anyway, that's tough, Joe, bringing up the Josh Jacobs thing, but that's something to watch. What happens with Josh Jacobs? Oh, did it change? I'm sorry, I didn't really read that. Did it change the FanDuel line? Let me look. I don't think that a running back having that happen. If you didn't see, he was arrested with a lot of charges, but I'll check. I mean, I don't think so. No, not really. Green Bay is still plus 250 to win the division. They're second behind the Lions, so it didn't really change anything there. I didn't think so. But it is something to watch, and I know that it's really tough because I saw Green Bay people having a dialogue and conversation about this, about, when there's domestic violence and should we be talking about how it impacts on the field. But the thing is, we cover the team, and if a player's not going to be there, it does impact what's going to happen on the field. I think we can do it sensitively with all understanding that domestic violence is very serious, and that Josh Jacobs should be held to the extent of the law, but also innocent until proven guilty. And, the facts need to come out and everything else. But at the same time, he might be suspended and he might not be on the field. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's not. And that does change things potentially for the Green Bay Packers football team. So you feel insensitive saying it, but that's an absolute fact. It will be worth watching because he's a heck of a player. Yes. High boy times. Jennings was out there today. Yep. JP, what about Ty Ingram Dawkins and Elijah Williams? Do you think one of them will lose their spot to Smith Vilbert or Eric Johnson or another DT? I love that this is the second time Smith Vilbert has come up. That's a guy who signed from a rookie camp. I mean, I don't know. You never know what's going to come of that. But I think they really like Elijah Williams, and I think that they see Ingram Dawkins as kind of a versatile type guy. Maybe, I know I brought up Jihad Ward before, but he kind of reminds me of him as a bigger guy that could fit in multiple different places. So I'm intrigued by both. I think that's a real battle. I don't know which one they like more or believe has a higher ceiling. I don't think, like, Eric Johnson is someone who's just going to be depth, and the same for Isaiah Loudermilk if they make the team. They're just veterans you bring in as insurance policies. If someone gets hurt, these guys have played NFL games before. They can stick their nose in and be okay. But you're hoping that the younger guys develop and are much better than them, and you could just cut them at the end of training camp and say, best of luck, right? So the development of Ingram Dawkins and Elijah Williams is 100% worth watching because that can swing the defensive line in terms of its depth. JP, where did Caleb Tiernan line up? I believe right tackle. I did not make a note on that, but I believe right tackle, I think. because I saw Vandemark working in at left tackle, obviously, when there were some reps that Darrisaw was in, some reps where he wasn't, and Vandemark was working in. So I assumed Tiernan was on the other side. When we get into some of these other OTA and minicamp practices, and it's not so much about Kyler Murray's first time out there, I'll try to do better when it comes to taking a little more notes on some other guys. But Tiernan, I believe, is going to start at right tackle, and that's where they're going to develop him. Joker, Ty Felton, and Dylan Bell, the best wide receiver quintet in the NFL. We'll see. We'll see if those guys, come along. Purple Kool-Aid to the FanDuel question: how did Jefferson's hamstrings look? If he could stay healthy, then he's going to hit the over. Yeah, the over-under being 1,150 yards. Should be over. Yeah, over or we riot / panic. Yeah, that's right. That is absolutely right. Steven, do you think KOC pops is that props rookies up too much too fast, like Dwayne McBride or JJ McCarthy? I think that KOC is always leaning toward positivity, so it can come across that way sometimes. Yeah. I think that when it came to that franchise quarterback thing, he would probably undo it at that time, but you also have to understand that the first impression of JJ McCarthy was really good. We were all talking about it that way. I mean, I went back and watched, just every once in a while, somebody will call me a JJ McCarthy hater because it's very intelligent commentary. But, I was curious, like, what did I say after his first preseason game? And I went back and watched it and I was like, yeah, that's how I felt about it. I had felt that McCarthy had made great progress in his first training camp, and that by the time he reached that preseason game, we saw a lot of the things that everybody liked about him. I mean, he bounced back from an interception. He showed the arm strength, the playmaking, little pocket presence there. And, last year, I think that circumstances played into it. And then I think it snowballed, right? Like missing those 5 games, coming off of a time where you missed an entire season, it just kept setting him back to square one. But when KOC said what he said, I didn't think it was ridiculous. I remember writing about it in a hotel in Berea or whatever it's called, Cleveland or Ohio. And so not a place I want to return to, but I remember writing about it in the hotel that night, and we did a podcast, probably me and Dane, and we're like, yeah, I mean, everything that was said right there made a lot of sense about how he felt about JJ McCarthy. And we all thought at that moment that it was a temporary thing with Sam Darnold. So it wasn't a ridiculous comment. I mean, I don't know, Dwayne McBride, like he's going to compliment, they draft a player, they're going to compliment them. Sometimes, yeah, you can't go too far when it comes to like putting stock in that. If Mike Zimmer compliments someone, you're going to maybe put a little more into, because it doesn't always do it. But I think KOC is always going to lean toward being positive toward players. Rach, we should use our judgment when it comes to Pro Bowls. Yeah, Kyler's were legitimate, but yeah, it's turned into absurdity. It wasn't always. That is only a very recent thing where it's turned into complete nonsense. But yeah, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. Whatever way you want to look at it, Kyler Murray has been ranked in the top 15 every year of his career, except one by the NFL executives who do the quarterback tiers article. I mean, that's probably the best way to put where he ranks in the NFL. And then by PFF, he's been 12th a couple times, top 10 once. So that's kind of where he can be. Pete's good to see you. Pizza Gary took a beating in the other chat. Oh, it is what it is, man. I mean, I'm not new to this, nor am I concerned about it. That's how it goes. If I can get through Kirk Cousins' 2021 season with the tribalist fans, then this is absolutely nothing. But one thing that people should know is, I mean, you've got to have figured out by now that you're not going to bully me out of an opinion. I mean, if that's what you show up to my comment section thinking you're going to do, best of luck. Because I've been doing this for 10 years and I came up in a sports radio universe of people calling in and yelling at me all the time. I do not care. It does not bother me in the slightest, but it does help the algorithm. And the thing is that no matter what happens, there's a consistency there which is I'm always going to do this based on the information that we have, right? No matter what it is. It's like we have this much information on Kyler Murray. We have this much information on J.J. McCarthy. We have this much information on Ty Felton. We have this much information on KOC. That's how it's always going to be shaped, where the opinions are coming from. So you can have whatever take you want. Strong football takes are great. I don't mind people getting upset with me or whatever else. I think if you're respectful, then you're always welcome here. But when it comes to the opinions or, how I'm going to lay it out, it's always going to be, here's the facts that are gathered and here's what I think of those facts. And so whether it's a quarterback competition or a punting competition, that's how it's going to go. And man, I'm hoping we get that punting competition. Charlie, you said that Murray was talking with McCown after practice. Did you see JJ go to McCown or KOC for extra details? I wasn't really looking for that. So I don't want to say, no, he didn't. I just saw Kyler working with McCown after practice. I don't know McCarthy's press conference was up first, and so Murray was doing some extra stuff while McCarthy came over. It's not super relevant. It's just that I noticed it. I noticed that Murray was taking some extra reps, but I wasn't taking a note of, I was watching the reps. So I wasn't like looking, is McCarthy going over to KOC or something like that? Usually doesn't happen a lot in this scenario. Training camp is where they will have a lot more of, it's supposed to work this way. Usually with this, they go through it, they go back, they look at the details and then come back the next day. So, grinding gears, odds that McCarthy is traded before the regular season. I would go at this moment, maybe 25% after today. I probably would have had it at 10% before today. I don't think it's going to happen, but if the disposition is going to be that he is really unhappy and frustrated, and if he doesn't perform pretty well and it feels like it's just better for everybody to part ways, then it's possible. I still don't think it's a great idea. Purple Kool-Aid, you want to run the possibility of creating a locker room issue? No, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. Not here. I think that can happen, but I don't think it's happening here with the locker room issue and, people taking side. I don't think that's really going to happen. I mean, you saw veterans have just been through too much, and there's so many great veterans in this locker room. And man, if you want to see how to handle something like this, just watch Justin Jefferson talk about it. Justin Jefferson was asked 50 times in different interviews over the last few weeks and the press conference he gave with us, so what do you think of the quarterback competition? And he said, hey, it's exciting, man. Let the best man win. We'll see how it goes. And I'm pumped for it. And that's how you kind of, all right. Well, Justin Jefferson made no headline whatsoever and just sort of kept it on the positive. And there you go. But Jefferson's also a grown up. So Rach says, think he's gone July or August. It could happen. I'm not going to count it out entirely. Beaver's best friend. I know it's way too early, but how did Juwan Jennings look? Hoping that KOC can soothe this animal spirit. So did he say that? Is that something he said? The animal spirit? I don't know. I know he's a unique dude. But when we're talking about how he looked, I can really only say that fine. He's a veteran receiver and he caught a couple passes, and he's not explosive. You're never going to see that, but powerful. That's what you could pick up on right away from Juwan Jennings, is this guy is bringing something very different. I'm too far behind in the chat to get answers if people gave them to me, but I was like, this is a big dude. This is a very big dude. Wild Central saw an article on the internet. Can Jake Golday be as versatile as Ben Lieber is? As a broadcaster, Ben is a very versatile broadcaster. No, he was a very good player as well. I don't think it's a bad comp. I think and Ben is a big guy too. Ben Lieber, certainly bigger than most reporters from the shoulders. I think that there's something there, because comparing him to Van Ginkel is a little bit tough. Van Ginkel is one of one. He's really difficult to replace. He's so unique, and it took a long time. Lieber might be a better comp of someone. Lieber was a playmaker, and he could blitz and get sacks, and he was good against the run. He was a good all-around player. So yeah, I could see something like that. Raw Dog says, respect your takes, but it feels like it feels like you've been taking everything JJ does or says in a negative light. People like Pelissero are taking a relatively different tune. Okay. I don't think so, because I never think of anything in positive, negative. I don't put stuff into categories like that. I just look at it as, here's what happened today. And my reaction is that I think there needs, if that's how he really feels, if it wasn't just something that came to mind and he said it, and it's how he really feels, is that, hey, we're just two guys in a classroom and he's over there and I'm over here. And he kind of said it twice. So it's like, it wasn't like a mistake, one-off comment. Like if that's how you feel, I think that you should shift a little bit in the way that you look at this and approach this. And the more you can learn from anybody in your life who's been through things or who has talents that you don't have, that you should take that approach. And if you are in a backup quarterback position, that what you should do, I spent 5 years or so doing radio with Sage Rosenfels, former Vikings backup, journeyman quarterback. I learned a lot about that world, right? And Sage had a career in part because, and look, JJ's got more raw talent than Sage did, of course, but Sage was around a lot longer than a lot of quarterbacks because of his approach, which was going to do anything it takes for the team, right? So if that's the backup quarterback, then I'm going to prepare the scout team the best I can. And that's what I was making the point about Steve Young. So, I don't think it's on the negative side. And, Pelissero's got his takes, and I know Tom and respect him a lot. So he can view it the way he wants to view it, but I'm not going to compare myself to somebody else. I do not listen to what anybody else says about this team because I'm going to give you what I think, not what somebody else thinks. So what I think is a press conference like today is certainly not the end of the world, and it's not the end of McCarthy's career, and they don't have to trade him after today or anything else. But I do think that this is a hard time for him, and I'm empathetic is what I said, which is, again, funny that, the comment section is going off and doing whatever it's going to do. It's like, I'm empathetic toward this. This must be very hard. It must be very hard to face those questions when last year he's being asked about being the franchise quarterback. But there are ways that quarterbacks traditionally in this situation have handled this. That's sort of the right way to pour water on the fire as opposed to gasoline. Abnormal says, you can't tell me JJ didn't spend a large amount of time rehearsing the answer and probably running it by others. He knew what was up. I don't know. I mean, I didn't feel that way, but I mean, this is not something I could tell you. I mean, I'm not in JJ McCarthy's head of whether it was rehearsed or not, but yeah, I mean, obviously we all know how it came across. So Joker, can we cancel our joint practices with the Ravens at the last minute and go practice with the Raiders? I don't trust the scummy rat birds. Why is that? That is a very random thing to say. Eric, JJ put it all out there. Don't blame him. Why does he have to be comfortable with the situation? A competition isn't comfortable, and the approach of fighting fire with fire may be the right path. I mean, there's a reason why nobody does this. Like, there's a reason why you don't have every QB2 come out and say, I refuse to talk to the other guy. Because you're on a team and you're supposed to be all pulling the rope toward the same direction, which would be Super Bowl togetherness, right? It's like, it's the coach's problem to teach him the offense or whatever. Like, I don't know. That's just not usually how it's viewed. A chip on his shoulder is perfectly fine, but you also have to have the humility to understand that you don't know everything, and you have two veteran quarterbacks in that room that you can learn a lot from. If you can see the bigger picture from JJ McCarthy's seat and see the bigger picture and say, I have a long way to go in the National Football League. And while I am mad as heck right now about this, I also have to make lemonade out of lemons and take as much as I can from these two veteran quarterbacks that I am blessed to have in my quarterback room, and take the hard coaching to heart even if it's not making me very happy. I mean, there's a lot of humility that has to go on here. And that's why I said empathetic. That's very hard to do. It's very hard to do after you have been at the top of the mountain for the entire time. And you feel it with Kyler Murray. You feel that Murray has been at the top and has been knocked down, or top-ish, and has been knocked down and is now in a position to come to the podium and say, yeah, it's great if I'm working with a younger quarterback. Would he have said that at 24? I don't know if he would have. But that's what comes along with maturity and experience. First OTA presser, and we have cult and crucifixion. Great. You're right. It must be Vikings football. Skull Shadow, some very good thought here. Never let your opinion become your identity. It's a good thought. That's deep. I like that. Sneedley, didn't seem like JJ didn't seem to fit compared to Kyler's interview today. Kyler seemed to say the right things, whereas JJ seemed like a deer in the headlights. And JJ is usually very comfortable in those scenarios. But it's a very different situation than he's ever been in. Kyler has answered for everything. Huge wins, big losses, everything. He's gone through that a million times. So Dan said, I bet in JJ's next press conference, he will speak glowingly of Kyler and quote the organization. Probably. We saw some raw emotion today from him. That was the takeaway. Skull Shadow, if McCarthy cannot realize that he's not the only quarterback on the roster with a contract in 2027 and cannot sit and learn to play it cool, he might as well ask for a trade. Vikend, you were fair in your assessment of McCarthy and Kyler Murray. Appreciate that. I try to be. I try to be fair for everything, and it rubs people the wrong way sometimes. I know that. I've been through that many, many times, and I've had people say a lot of nasty things to me because of it. It is what it is. Like, I chose to cover the team and do live streaming or be on radio previously or whatever it is. So, it's all right. But I do appreciate that you feel that way. And that's always the main goal for me, no matter what, is always to try to present it in the most fair and accurate way possible. TS Blake, we need to chill on Kyler. He isn't good by the second half of the year and will be benched and playing Call of Duty. You sound very, very smart. Come on, man. We got to be better than that. My comment section has a high bar. Got to be better. Got to be better than that. If you want to make an astute point about Kyler Murray's inconsistency and you want to cite his QBR, which I did in an article about Kyler Murray when they got him, and how it's bounced up and down a lot throughout his career, even on a game-to-game basis, then that is a very fair assessment. If you want to throw the Call of Duty stuff out there, you just sound like a dumbass. Look, the guy learned the Drew Petzing offense, which is rooted in the West Coast, which came from Kyle Shanahan, which came from Gary Kubiak. That's who he worked for. That's the offense Kyler was running and was the 12th best PFF quarterback in the league in 2024. That's who we're talking about here. So if he was just playing video games, man, I don't know how he learned that offense, because there's a lot to it. Now, early in his career, did he have to learn stuff like Caleb Williams did last year and like JJ still does? Yeah, I think that's clear. And did he let maybe his physical gifts, just kind of take over a lot of times? I think so, early in his career. But I also think what I've seen recently is that wasn't the case as much, that he was playing much more within the system. And he still does make mistakes at times. But man, making fun of a player for playing video games in 2026 is just lame. It's just lame. You know who plays video games? Justin Jefferson. How will he ever do it? Kyler Murray played in a chess tournament yesterday and had a really good practice. Imagine. It was on chess.com. He lost to Justin Herbert. Oh, Justin Herbert's playing video games? Anyway. Viking, is anyone else completely sick and tired of hearing all the time we spend on quarterback? Thank you for the insights on Elijah Williams. Yeah, look, quarterback is always and forever going to be the number one thing that people want to talk about, no matter what. I mean, I saw on the internet the other day, people were saying that John Elway wasn't that good, and it got all sorts of engagement. It's like, okay, great. Great stuff, guys. Good job, internet. Taking one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, say he sucks. What a model to get attention. Well done. But it's always going to be the biggest thing. It is the biggest thing. With this franchise, it's always the biggest thing. Until you have it, until you know you have it, it's always going to be the biggest discussion. And you know what? Had McCarthy done what I said, then it wouldn't have been as big of a discussion today. There would have been more stuff that we would have talked about. Joker, the little shot at B-Flow was great, creating an ultra competitive environment. Yeah, I mean, that is going to be really interesting to watch as it goes along in the summer with Brian Flores. I just think that there's a lot more to what Kyler Murray can have around him than what he's ever had before. And that includes Brian Flores. And he already said today, like, that he's been talking with Flores and working things out. And that's what Flores loved about Sam Darnold. That Darnold and he really clicked. And I think it helped with Sam Darnold a ton to click with Brian Flores. He's the best defensive mind in football. So again, Kyler Murray's defenses, just go ahead and Google them. They were really bad. This is a different scenario. Skull Shadow, Murray has an injury history. I think Wentz was brought in because McCarthy cannot be trusted even as a second stringer. He's got to earn the second string job. Yeah. He has to earn QB2. Because last year, Wentz was the better quarterback. Purple Kool-Aid, I don't think it's always factored in that KOC has some pride in JJ's development as well. If your first rounder, you pick it as a position, you're supposed to be a wizard imploded. It's a poor reflection. Right. And so when there's this whole idea of, well, they're giving up on him or, you know, they're just by getting Kyler Murray, like I don't think that. I think that nobody wants it to work more than KOC. I think if you told KOC, yeah, actually JJ McCarthy's going to outperform Kyler in training camp this year, he'd probably be over the moon. He'd be like, oh, that's fantastic. Because then he's still under contract and he can still be your quarterback. And if it fails with Murray, if you go 2-4 to start the season, you could go to McCarthy and then off you go, right? I'm sure he'd love that to happen. I don't know where this came from, Hunter. Who is the NBA GOAT? I don't know. Or is this like talking about the, like the tribalism? Yeah. Dustin, JJ sounded like he should, pissed off and motivated. Local media wants him to say, I suck and I'll quit. See, every one of the comments like this just sound dumb as heck. I can't sugarcoat it for you. Every comment like that just sounds so stupid. Why would the local media want JJ McCarthy to fail? I mean, we spent so much time on JJ McCarthy last year talking about every part of the guy. I mean, first of all, when he was at his best, he's a media darling at the podium. That doesn't matter so much to me. But I mean, I think JJ McCarthy has come into Minnesota and he's won a lot of people over when he first got here and looked great from the start. And wouldn't it be nice for Purple Insider to cover the franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings? My God, do you think I enjoyed this with Kirk Cousins, where it was always a freaking debate over and over and over and over, the same discussion? No, I didn't really have the greatest time all the time with the same Kirk Cousins conversation, just like already we're into the same JJ McCarthy conversation, where if you point out the stuff about, you know, how this is gone so far, then all this, oh, you're a hater. It's like, no, look, man, it would be so much more interesting to cover a team that was competing for Super Bowls with Justin Herbert or Eli Manning or whatever franchise quarterback, even if they weren't perfect, than it is to cover another quarterback. What's going to happen? So yeah, I mean, I guess everybody just wants him to fail. It's everybody else, right? Come on. I think we know that's not true. Um, Rach, Sam Darnold, a better person than most of us. I think he said that he thinks the out indefinitely mononucleosis memes are funny. Yeah, that is funny. I don't know if he thought it was funny when it happened. So anyway, Mike said, from the first few throws I've seen, Kyler is light years ahead of JJ, even on air. McCarthy missing his spots late on his throws, and McCarthy having the audacity to be salty after how he played is not good. One thing I'll give you, Mike, is that you always bring some heat to the comment section. I'll give you that. Kyler is light years ahead of him as a thrower. Yeah. I mean, that's because he's more natural with it. You do not make it at 5'10" in the NFL if you can't throw that ball. So the reason, nor do you get picked as the top draft pick, that does not happen in the NFL. You would not start if you're 5'10" unless you really can throw it. So it was my expectation, and I'm not going to go too far in judging what you said about McCarthy. There were a few throws, yes, that were a little bit behind. There was one that probably, could have been an interception today. And then there were others that were accurate. I thought McCarthy had a fine practice. I wasn't like vomiting on the sideline because it was so poor or anything. It looked fine. But when Murray's out there, it stands out, and it should. Like, that's why they went and got him. So, Goofster, if Bradford was healthy, we would have won it all in 2017. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. The way he played in the opener, my goodness. Honey Barrel, aren't the Vikings leaning into being mediocre by signing Kyler Murray? He's 28 and he is who he is. You may want to check out some other quarterbacks historically. When you say he's 28, he is who he is. There are quite a few quarterbacks through NFL history. Was there a guy named Sam Darnold who was 27 when he showed up here? Yes. So here's what you need to keep in mind with Kyler Murray is supporting cast matters. It's a huge deal. If you can meet certain requirements of the quarterback position, that's what's driving success. Jimmy Garoppolo was not a great quarterback. Jalen Hurts is not always a perfect quarterback. These guys have reached Super Bowls because their supporting casts were good. And Kyler Murray has not had anything like this. So if you're saying he is who he is, well, that might be true, but his supporting casts are not who they've been. That stat about the defense and special teams was wild from Mike Sando, that he got the least support in the league from defense and special teams. That's crazy. Can we ban Darnold discussion? We wouldn't have won with him. Well, you'll never know that. And no, I don't think we can. I don't think we can forget that they gave away a guy who won a Super Bowl last year. So I don't think we're going to just pretend it didn't happen. It happened. Hunter, my stance on the JJ interview is that this has been tough on him and he wasn't really able to hide it. That doesn't mean I think they should trade his ass immediately. That's very fair. And that was my point. The raw emotion kind of came out there, I think. 12 Malatu, 22. Like the idea of a Richardson JJ swap. Kyler's going to be QB1 at the start of the year. It really depends on, I think, how Kevin O'Connell feels about JJ McCarthy. If you are wanting to continue to push this and you might have to just fight through it a little bit with him being clearly down on the situation, then you shouldn't do it. Then you shouldn't move him because he's under contract. But if you feel like this is just sort of hit a wall and it's better for everybody to part ways, then maybe you do consider something like that. Hunter says, much rather have a pick. Richardson is probably just a bust. Yeah, I mean, you're probably right about Richardson. That's a hard thing to overcome, not really being able to throw at all. But at the same time, I mean, he is a freak. He is an absolute freak and could be, with health and development, at least, I'm trying to think of like a backup type of quarterback who was a great athlete who could give you something. I don't know if the upside is ever going to be there, but Richardson has had legitimately good games and is a prolific runner, which raises the floor of him being in a game, gives him a chance to win. But I mean, you might be right about that. Mike, I always do give Arizona a hard time because they're a terrible franchise. That's why. I understand that they've got to a Super Bowl with Kurt Warner, who's an all-time great quarterback, But since then, they have been as bad as Cleveland. They've been as bad as the Jets. They deserve my commentary. So, Skull Shadow, remember the amount of people that comment on YouTube is like 1% of Vikings fans. That's true. And it's always, the most aggressive. Kerpluppy, thoughts on the Josh Jacobs situation that will have real NFC North implications. Yeah, you're right. It will. And it's worth watching is all I can really say. I mean, who knows how that's going to turn out. But if you're the NFL, and I was disappointed in the way that the NFL handled the Dalvin Cook situation a couple years ago, and I'm very interested to see what they do with James Pierce and with Josh Jacobs, because after Ray Rice, they made a big stand with stuff like this. But also there's a legal system, and people deserve their due process in the United States of America. So we can't say for sure what the facts are of the situation until we really know, because it's pretty short on facts at this moment, and the Packers didn't reveal a heck of a lot more. But I also think if you're the Packers, I mean, this thing might not be resolved by week 1. What do you do? Can you just throw them out there? Like, that seems very callous, but it is the NFL and it's pretty callous. So I don't know. James Pierce, same thing. I think, but James Pierce happening a while back might result in a quicker suspension. I think the NFL has been very clear on leaning toward waiting until things play out legally before they act. So Jacobs may be on the field or he may not. I really don't know. Dirty Mike will be huge having a receiver that could beat press coverage. Yeah, they got 2 of them. Thank you, Don Engie. Appreciate the compliment there. Hunter, it's going to be a long off season. We need Kyler to win some games so people will shut up. Yeah, there's a long way till those games get played. I didn't expect this to be the main. I mean, I expected it to be the main discussion of how they looked, but I really didn't expect the press conference to be the main conversation. I can tell you that. Jared, I get what you're saying when you said it makes you sad that we've created a system where being open and honest and not behaving like a robot creates a huge media tidal wave, but I don't think that really applies here. I really don't. I really don't think that JJ McCarthy is being victimized by the media landscape in this case. He was very revealing in how he felt about the Kyler Murray situation. And yes, that's fair. But also, there's the reason why you act, I would say, professionally in front of the media when you're asked those types of questions is so you're not creating a distraction. You know what it's like out there. You know that anything like this is going to be discussed because it's May and everyone's looking for football conversations with OTAs starting. So you know that that's what's going to happen. No one is saying don't ever show any personality or anything else. But when you say something like, we're like 2 high school kids at the other sides of the room, and that's how you're describing how you view the quarterback situation. I mean, it's very notable, and it's worth discussing of how is he dealing with this? And it doesn't seem like the answer is great. So yeah, that's just worth discussing. I mean, media tidal wave. I don't know. Like, it's not life and death to have a conversation about somebody's. I mean, some people are acting like it in the comment section, that's for sure, but it's not. We're just having a conversation about what he said. So I don't know. I don't think it's that deep, man. Was Monkel Goodwine at OTAs? Whoever you are, thank you. That is, I have no idea, but that is a great pull. Because, and the only reason I don't is because they separate the UDFAs and stuff along with the first and second teamers who are like already pretty locked into their positions. But I love that you asked. If Tiernan is at right tackle, sayonara to Brian O'Neill. No, I don't think so necessarily. I mean, it might be if they really love what they see, but at the same time, they're going to put him on the right side because Vandemark is the backup left tackle. And I'm sure that they'll cross train a little bit there, but that just makes sense to me. Mr. J Swan says Jacob Thomas and Jacoby Thomas are both 6'1" and 212 pounds. You're welcome for this useless knowledge. That is great commentary, Mr. J Swan. They do not look exactly the same, but their names do. Hunter, if JJ could be traded for like a second, then I'm all in on it personally. I don't think that's possible. I don't think anyone is doing a second right now. Steven, I understand the FanDuel line on Jefferson may be more of an emphasis on running, and to quote Kyler Murray, an embarrassment of riches at the skill position. That's fair enough. Yeah, if you're distributing the ball and running and you lose some dropbacks by scrambling, yeah, I could see that. But 1,100 yards, with someone like Jefferson, I feel like it's got to be higher than that. Jay says, why are the coaches not saying QB mechanics for Kyler? He whips his leg more than JJ because Kyler is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL, so it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a right way to throw the football, but at the same time, you can't look at Kyler Murray as being similar to anyone. And the leg whip thing, I don't know. I mean, just the level of stupidity of this thing is pretty deep. But yeah, they're not teaching a pro quarterback who has been around this long and had this much success how to throw a ball. It's actually disturbing that they were teaching JJ McCarthy late into last year, trying to do it in the middle of the season. That's just not done in the NFL. You don't teach mechanics in the middle of a season. The fact that they felt that was necessary was really concerning, the fact that it happened last year. Yeah, Jared, let us remind ourselves that JJ McCarthy is basically a kid. That's exactly what I've said, is that, he's going through all this for the first time. Also, though, it's time. It's like year 3. It's time. Your brain isn't fully formed. Come on, man. I mean, we just, look, it's just a press conference. We don't need to get into frontal lobe stuff. Frontal lobes, crucifixions. It's been weird here today, I gotta say. Let's not twist JJ's words. I didn't twist any of JJ's words. So, but this is great. I didn't even get into this part of the comment section. You're hired by the Vikings, and this is biased content. I'm not hired by anyone. I own my own company. Why do you hate JJ McCarthy? Okay. Probably time to wrap it up, but I am amused. I'm actually amused. I am actually amused at this point. Why do you hate him? Oh, I don't know, man. Because he's taller than me. I only like the quarterbacks who are shorter than I am. Oh man, little bit of silly season today, but at least we had something to talk about. Is there bots though? Are these real people that all just say the same thing over and over again? Let's see. Don, do you think Xavier Scott could be QB or RB2 by Thanksgiving? No, but I think he could be a contributor. I do. Damon Claiborne is very young, inexperienced. He played at Wake Forest. So Xavier Scott had some moments last year. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays a lot of special teams early on and is active on game day. They can bump him out to wide receiver. I liked a lot of what I saw from Xavier Scott. I don't think he's like a superstar, but I think he can get in the game. I don't think, I see what you're saying though. Actually, I was dismissive, but I see what you're saying. If Aaron Jones gets banged up and Damon Claiborne isn't ready, then Xavier Scott might play. So I see what you're saying on there. And I think that they like him maybe more than everyone else does with Xavier Scott. But I also wouldn't be terribly shocked if they looked for one more veteran to bring in at that position. Thank you for asking about another position. That was nice. So I think we've covered just about everything. But Hunter, I do appreciate the fact that Hunter is trying to explain to the bot people about the way things went last year. I mean, look, you can't change the facts. So this is probably a good time to call it a day, but I appreciate how interactive we were this evening. My thing is you can't really change the facts of the matter, right? The facts of what happened last year, the facts of why Kyler Murray is here. And JJ McCarthy is aware of why Kyler Murray is here. And my thought for JJ McCarthy is that he showed some raw emotion today about how he's feeling about this quarterback situation. And I think that that's probably really, really tough. And if he had played better last year, he wouldn't be in this position. And if he fixed the mechanics, then he wouldn't be in this spot. If he had good timing and chemistry with Justin Jefferson, he wouldn't be in this spot. But now he is, so he has to dig himself out of it, and no one can do it for him. That's what he has to understand too. It's not us. It's not people on the internet. It's not Kevin O'Connell. It's not John Beck. It isn't anybody. There's nobody else that can do it except for him. And I don't think that it's that helpful toward doing it to talk about to take this approach of like, I'm doing my own thing, you're doing your own thing, and whatever else. I don't know that it's that helpful. I also don't know that every chip on the shoulder is a good chip on the shoulder. We always talk about it as if it's a good thing, but I've been around a lot of football players whose chip was too big and who thought everybody was out to get them. So you don't want to fall into that trap either. You don't want to fall into the trap of feeling like you're the victim. The stats are what they are. They tell the story of how you played last year, and it wasn't great. So there's a lot of things to kind of look at here with JJ McCarthy, and from what he said, and to see going forward now, well, how is this going to play out between those two guys, and where's it going to fit in? So overall, what a first day of OTAs. It wouldn't be Vikings land if it wasn't exactly like this. But I would also suggest that, you folks in the comment section hate this player, hate that player. You might just want it to take a deep breath, because that's not how anything works at Purple Insider Industries. So anyway, I'll have more over at purpleinsider.football, and make sure you check out my feature on Chuck Demings that's over there, the Vikings 5th round rookie. I talked to his defensive coordinator for the story. Very, very interesting background stuff on him. So make sure you check that out, purpleinsider.football. So thanks everybody for stopping by and having this conversation, and we will definitely continue it going forward here. Plan is to be live again probably tomorrow night. And also I've got a conversation coming with Drew Dinsick from NBC Sports, who is a really interesting guy. And we do a show every year where we make predictions. And a couple years ago, he predicted Kyler Murray to the Vikings. So we're going to talk about that. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And if you haven't already MF'd me in the comment section of my breakdown with Dane Mizutani over on the channel, check that out too. That was our reaction immediately after JJ McCarthy's press conference. So thanks everybody, and we'll talk to y'all again soon.